In the 21st century, humanity's reckless pollution gives rise to horrific monsters known as corruptors, ravaging civilization. High above a burning metropolis, our ultimate agent Jin Shido stands calm on the wing of a jet fighter. Spotting the slaughter through the smoke, the silver-haired agent locks eyes on the beasts below. "Found you," he murmurs cold, diving straight into the inferno. Can one man stand against total extinction? Down on the ruined streets, a panicked civilian runs until his lungs burn, crying out into the desolate wasteland. But his screams only summon beastly behemoths that smash through the asphalt. He is completely cornered. Clutching a cracked photograph of his dead family, the lone survivor falls to his knees, weeping for help. Over 99% of humanity has already been slaughtered. He prays for someone to make these monsters pay. Massive fangs snap down to claim the last remnant of his life. That should have solved the problem for the beasts. Instead, a blinding radiant flash cuts through the crimson sky and creates a bigger one. A blinding beam of light pierces the crimson sky, annihilating the ferocious monster in a single instant. Jin Shido slams directly into the asphalt, crushing the threat completely into dust. The terrified civilian gapes in shock as our silver-haired agent steps forward, calmly apologizing for arriving late. Radiating an intense glowing aura, the ultimate agent towers over the ruined city streets like an unstoppable powerhouse. Seeing an unrivaled savior standing tall, the weeping survivor breaks down in tears of profound relief. Could humanity finally turn the tide and reclaim their fallen world? As giant corruptors circle around the destroyed buildings, the weak civilian desperately hugs Jin Shido's coat. He tearfully begs to know if humanity can really take everything back. The silver-haired hero looks down at the broken survivor, giving a quiet, solemn promise. Yes, that should have solved the problem. Instead, a tragic reality reveals itself. A massive, fatal wound bleeds heavily across the civilian's back. Whispering his final words of tearful gratitude, the last survivor collapses completely lifeless onto the shattered street. Jin Shido closes his eyes in grim sorrow. Was he already too late to save humanity? Kagura, the head scientist, steps forward with a heavy reality check. The fallen civilian on the shattered street was their absolute last chance. He urges Jin to accept the cold truth once and for all. Humanity is completely finished. See decades of reckless environmental pollution mutated into horrific corruptors possessing unbelievable regeneration. Even relentless nuclear bombardments failed to eradicate them from the Earth. Can normal weapons even scratch these immortal nightmare beasts? Desperate for a countermeasure, researchers subjected our boy to agonizing human experiments to forge the ultimate powerhouse. But their breakthrough came far too late. By the time his transformation finished, every single human survivor was already dead. Yet Jin Shido stubbornly refuses to surrender to extinct destiny. When Kagura questions if he seriously expects to find anyone alive in this wasteland, the silver-haired hero glances back with a calm smile. In the future. If you ask me, dreaming of tomorrow seems crazy, but our hero actually has a plan. His entire strategy relies on specialized nanomachines designed to clean the toxic atmosphere and restore the planet for generations yet to come. Nanomachines begin breaking down the corruptors on a cellular level, permanently neutralizing their terrifying regeneration. But these microscopic weapons do far more than kill monsters. They actively purge toxic pollution, restoring the poisoned atmosphere step by step. Looking across the burning sky, the ultimate agent envisions a world brought back from total extinction. He remains absolutely convinced that once Earth cleanses itself, a prosperous human civilization will rise from the ash once more. Kagura dismisses the hero's dream without hesitation. "That's a pipe dream," the head scientist warns coldly, but the silver-haired agent just smiles and walks away, calmly replying, "I'm fine with that. If you ask me, even a tiny sliver of hope beats giving up. If future generations ever emerge, they are going to need an ultimate protector." Stepping inside a high-tech cryogenic stasis pod, the silver-haired agent prepares to hibernate until the planet heals. Kagura adjusts the console, securing their final gamble. Cold sleep activates. Decades flash by like seconds while grotesque beasts wander the ruined landscape. Year after year ticks away, carrying Earth through immense spans of time as the atmosphere slowly alters. Will humanity ever return? Centuries turn into millennia, while microscopic nanomachines work endlessly in the background. Horrific corruptors still crawl across barren wastes under crimson skies, completely oblivious to the massive planetary transformation taking place around them. Over tens of thousands of years, toxic environmental pollution dissolves completely, and immortal beasts finally perish. Nature reclaims the land. Fresh forests cover the old world while Earth shines brilliant blue in space once more. Lush green meadows and pristine tropical beaches thrive with vibrant new wildlife across the restored planet. Honestly, sleeping for 100 million years is wild. Exactly that immense span passes before the stasis pod confirms the access key, initiating cold sleep deactivation. Has human civilization returned? Panic explodes through the ancient ruins as desperate footsteps hammer against stone. Panting heavily, a young beastkin girl flees for her life with terror visible in her eyes. A colossal shadowy beast with glowing red eyes relentlessly hunts three terrified children through the dark corridors. They sprint toward the sealed ancient chamber, tearfully shouting to check if their target is really in a place like this. Can our hero wake up in time to save them? Cornered in the dark ruins, the panicked children cry out as death closes in fast. But the brave beastkin girl refuses to surrender. Clutching her sacred pendant, she remembers the ancient legend of a guardian deity sleeping nearby, praying the old stories are true. Slamming through the heavy steel vault doors, the kids rush inside to find their ultimate savior. Sounds promising, right? Not exactly. The ancient chamber turns out to be a dead end with nowhere left to hide. The massive dark predator breaks into the room, cornering the defenseless children against the wall. Huge fangs snap down to finish them. Desperate and terrified, the young girl screams out her final tearful plea for the legendary guardian to save them. Spiderweb cracks instantly shatter across the glowing green stasis pod. A calm voice murmurs, "Understood." The glass explodes outward, releasing a blinding pillar of hyper-concentrated radiant energy straight into the ceiling. That divine light blasts straight through the monster, obliterating the nightmare beast in a violent, high-power eruption. In my opinion, waking up after 100 million years to deliver an instant kill is peak badassery. Our silver-haired hero is officially awake. The stunned beastkin children gaze in complete awe as bare feet step down from the shattered stasis pod. Radiating intense blue energy with power crackling in his hand, Jin Shido looks down with a confident smile. Aren't you glad you believed in the possibilities of the future? Humanity's ultimate protector has finally returned. Inside the ancient facility, our boy inspects a high-tech storage box left behind by Kaguya. Nestled right beside a nanomachine injector sits his original combat suit, perfectly preserved after all these centuries. But as the immortal agent steps up to the glowing main terminal, reality hits hard. 100 million years of environmental wear has corrupted nearly all of the system's data archives. His only surviving lead is a glowing message cube left by his former comrade. Before he can even press play, an awkward situation unfolds. Our hero casually turns around while completely naked, sending the beastkin kids into total disarray as the old monkey elder frantically shields the young girl's eyes. Talk about a crazy level of disrespect. That embarrassing moment ends quickly. The legendary fighter pulls on his signature dark trench coat and gloves, instantly returning to his prime form. If you ask me, the gear looks terrifyingly cool. With his iconic suit equipped, the massive steel vault doors tremble and groan open, unsealing the underground bunker. Blinding daylight bursts into the dark hallway, forcing the group to cover their faces as they take their very first steps into the open world. After 100 million years buried beneath the earth, the ultimate weapon finally gazes out at the surface. But his smile fades fast. Gazing out from the cliffside, our boy takes in a lush, reborn earth, a world unrecognizable from the ruined wasteland of his past. The little beastkin girl reverently addresses him as a guardian deity, pointing down the trail and urging him to follow. Observing their distinct animal traits, the ultimate weapon realizes true humanity perished long ago. He deduces these kids are descendants altered by ancient nanomachine exposure, which also explains their shared language. Satisfied with his realization, he offers a calm smile and prepares to introduce himself. He introduces himself as Jin. In response, the young girl names herself Hakama, followed by her energetic companion Dampo and the timid catboy Shandy. As they head down the mountain, our hero cuts straight to the chase, asking what task requires his power. Hakama begs him to eliminate the eroders terrorizing their homeland. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Before they can even finish speaking, Lil Bro gasps in complete horror as violent flames and dark smoke consume their village down in the valley. Terrified for his parents, the catboy sprints blindly toward the blazing settlement despite Hakama's warning shouts. If he rushes into that inferno alone, he won't survive. Jin watches closely, his calm demeanor shifting into battle mode as danger strikes. Jin steps directly into the burning settlement, taking in the primitive wooden barricades and simple timber huts. Civilization clearly reset back to square one after 100 million years. With no time to waste, our hero follows the panicked kids right into the inferno. Hakama stops dead in her tracks, consumed by sheer horror. Just up ahead, an elder beastkin struggles desperately against a fierce, bone-armored monster snapping its razor teeth against her wooden staff. The grandmother screams for the kids to run, but terror keeps them completely frozen. Jin inspects the hostile creature with a cool, tactical gaze. Is that what locals call an erodor? He instantly recognizes the beast as a corruptor, the exact same species that destroyed his original era. If you ask me, some nightmares just refuse to die. Refusing to abandon her grandmother, Hakama flares with a bright green energy aura. Jin's eyes narrow as he detects the glowing signature. That power signature feels surprisingly familiar. He leaps into action. Before the monster can crush the old woman, our boy intercepts with relentless speed. He strikes the corruptor, blasting it back, and effortlessly scoops up the elder mid-air. With the line clear, Hakama unleashes her glowing aura straight at the beast. Hakama channels her green aura into a blazing energy projectile and hurls it straight into the monster's face. The blast detonates on impact, slamming the armored beast into the dirt with an agonizing screech. Jin inspects the smoking target, noting that its damaged tissue completely fails to heal. He immediately recognizes the tactical effect. Her attack activated atmospheric nanomachines to suppress the creature's legendary cell regeneration. Our boy asks if everyone in this era wields such destructive firepower. The elder clarifies that only 4 villagers possess what they call divine power. Sounds impressive, right? To Jin, divine power is simply a primitive term for environmental nanomachine control. Hakama frantically asks where the rest of their people fled, but the old woman explains she ordered a full evacuation. Despair consumes her face as she warns them that their home is already lost. The elder drops a crushing reality check. That vicious monster was merely a newborn hatchling. Its colossal main body looms nearby, and an entire horde of younglings will invade the valley in moments. Before terror settles in, a cocky beastkin spear warrior named Saris steps up, rudely telling the old woman to stop crying. He arrogantly boasts he can slaughter an erodor of that level all by himself. Honestly, this guy's ego is asking for trouble. Hakama reunites with her father, who confirms the villagers safely reached the emergency shelter just in time. But all relief vanishes when the young girl reveals she ventured into the forbidden ground. The elder stares in shock, realizing the ancient seal was broken. Hakama explains that village legends promised a guardian deity would step out from behind the door in their hour of danger. The old woman inspects the immortal agent with deep skepticism. Does an ordinary human without beast traits really possess divine strength? Saris bursts out laughing, aggressively mocking the hero's arrival. Stepping right into Jin's space, the arrogant spearman sneers that anyone lacking animal traits is merely an inferior creature. Personally, I think this guy's oversized ego is asking for major trouble. The catboy frantically defends their savior, shouting that Jin already eliminated an erodor single-handedly. But Saris casually laughs off the achievement. He claims killing a weak newborn monster is completely unimpressive, boasting he could take one down with a single blow. Crossing every line, Saris thrusts his razor-sharp spear tip directly at our boy's face. The hot-headed warrior cold-bloodedly warns the outsider to step back, ordering him not to get carried away just because the children call him a deity. Without waiting for a response, Saris turns his back and marches straight toward the looming threat. The arrogant spear warrior scoffs over his shoulder, telling the group to mope around while he slaughters the monster alone. Can a hothead like that really win? The elder screams after him in frustration, knowing the foolish warrior is sprinting directly into a death trap. With time running out, she turns to Jin, expressing her deep gratitude and begging him to guide the children to safety while she stakes everything on one last gamble that should have settled their escape plan. Instead, the immortal agent flatly refuses. Hakama watches in awe as Jin steps past the group with a cold smirk. He refuses to let that foolish spearman die so easily. Not after being called an inferior creature. Out in the shallow waters, a massive eritter emerges, looming over the shore like a colossal nightmare. But the arrogant beastman youth steps right up without a trace of hesitation, glaring straight at the looming titan. Hey, freakface! Coiling crackling lightning around his spear, the hot-headed warrior boasts that he is the future holy knight destined to shoulder the entire nation. An eroder of this scale doesn't terrify him. He leaps high into the air, shouting that he'll take it down himself. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. The monster's grotesque hide ruptures, spawning twin horrors that spring directly at his throat. Can this rookie survive? Our loudmouth catboy clears the path instantly, slashing through them both. With the minion trash wiped out, he locks his sights onto the main target. Rocketing straight through the sky with his lightning spear, he roars at the top of his lungs to finish the titan in one final strike. He carves through the beast's thick neck, sending dark blood flying everywhere as a triumphant grin flashes across his face. Nice strike. If I were in his shoes, I would celebrate too, except his problems are only just beginning. The spear strike lands, but the titan roars right back with terrifying force. Before Saris can even roll to safety, dark muscle fibers pull back together as glowing red energy seals the open wound. The beast's massive laceration fully regenerates in seconds. The catboy freezes in horror, realizing his absolute best attack did zero lasting damage. That split-second hesitation almost costs him his life. The enraged monster counters instantly as a colossal claw sweeps down from the sky, trapping him dead in its shadow. Crouched on the muddy shore, he can't dodge in time. Is this the end for the rookie knight? Instead of getting flattened into paste, a brilliant hexagonal shield blinks to life, absorbing the crushing blow effortlessly. Jin Shido stands right in front of the titan with one hand in his pocket, looking back over his shoulder to ask, "Are you done?" Saris can only stare, trembling at the sheer gap in power. If you ask me, this is a crazy level of disrespect. While the loudmouth catboy panics in utter shock that the giant creature is still breathing, our ancient badass remains completely unbothered. He casually raises his gloved hand into position and snaps his fingers. With a single, effortless snap, razor-sharp light blades materialize out of thin air and dice the colossal titan into falling pieces. The loudmouth catboy freezes in utter shock as monster blood sprays across the water. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. Behind them, the fleeing villagers skid to a sudden halt, gaping at the battlefield in utter disbelief. Seeing a mysterious stranger hold off a towering nightmare with one hand shatters everything they knew about power. Is this guy even human? Despite arresting the titan's crushing weight without breaking a sweat, our ancient badass isn't looking to stand around and show off. He nonchalantly notes that the weight is starting to build up and decides it is time to fall back. Before the hot-headed warrior can even open his mouth to protest, Jin scoops him up by the waist and launches high into the air. They blast away from the muddy shore, escaping the creature's sweeping strike in a single bound. If you ask me, dragging the rookie out of danger is classic main character behavior. Touching down on safe ground, Saris demands to know his true identity, anxiously warning that the titan will just regenerate endlessly. Jin breaks down the brutal reality of their fight. What these locals revere as divine power is actually ancient nanomachines designed to shut down monster regeneration. Saris landed a solid strike earlier, but the cut was far too shallow to do real damage. Stunned by the overwhelming gap in power, the rookie knight asks if Jin is truly their legendary guardian deity. Our ancient hero casually steps past him, scoffing that he never remembered becoming any kind of god. He has urgent business to settle. Reminding the loud catboy of his boast about defending the village, Jin bluntly shuts him down. This isn't the rookie's fight. Stepping straight toward the looming nightmare, Jin declares this is his own problem. He takes full responsibility. The titan shrieks in fury, thrashing massive tentacles as shallow ocean water churns into foam. Does a giant monster intimidate an ancient superweapon? Not a chance. Jin charges straight toward the beast, calculating his tactical control. First, restrict its movement. With a sharp snap of his gloved fingers, blinding light spikes erupt into existence, pinning the Titan's massive limbs to the earth instantly. Ceres watches in disbelief, trembling as he realizes these beasts were born from humanity's own foolishness. Cyan lightning coils violently around his gloved hand as our ancient badass steps straight into the storm. Having survived 100 million years of total isolation, he refuses to let the sins of the old world destroy the new. This is his burden. He will settle this nightmare himself. The loudmouth catboy watches from the shore, trembling as he asks if any warrior can truly kill an immortal titan. Jin doesn't even flinch. He locks his glare on the creature and calmly responds, "I can." That confidence is unmatched. See, Jin isn't just another hero. He was created through endless centuries of brutal warfare, dark scientific experiments, and tragic history. As humanity's ultimate weapon and final survivor, he alone carries the crushing weight of an extinct civilization. He unleashes his true power. A catastrophic beam of energy detonates from his palm, slicing through the shallow ocean and pulverizing everything in its path. Can any monster actually survive an attack this massive? Not a chance. The colossal titan shrieks in sheer panic as the blinding torrent swallows its grotesque body whole. Honestly, the level of destruction here is absurd. The entire horizon erupts in a blinding flash of light, completely vaporizing the beast into absolute nothingness. The energy beam punches all the way into outer space, burning through the clouds. Not a single cell remains. As the ocean calms under clear blue skies, the stunned villagers break into joyful tears, knowing their home was just saved from total annihilation. The loudmouth catboy drops to his knees in utter disbelief. How could anyone possess such strength? Casually dusting off his gloves, our ancient hero looks back with a sharp smirk, reminding the rookie that he is no deity. He is humanity's ultimate scientific weapon. Hidden in the nearby tree line, a sharp-eyed scout observes the entire cataclysm through her spyglass. Originally sent only to investigate local monster sightings, she gapes in utter awe after witnessing a level of power that far surpasses even the Holy Knight commander of the royal capital. Is this mysterious stranger friend or foe? Clenching her fist in wild excitement, the scout realizes she now holds the biggest scoop in the kingdom. She prepares to race back to the royal capital immediately, eager to report this insane battle directly to the guildmaster. A holographic recording from the old scientist springs to life right in front of our ultimate weapon. The researcher tries cracking a dramatic line, but our boy remains completely unamused. The doctor asks how the future looks, expecting Earth's environment to have recovered considerably. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. The scientist drops a heavy truth bomb. Even with the planet healed, the monstrous corruptors will never truly go extinct. Our cold-eyed lead listens in total silence, but his smile fades fast. See, 1,000 years after Jin entered deep sleep, his creator repeatedly woke up to observe the world's progress. If he doesn't monitor the timeline, who will? But during these periodic checks, a subtle sense of uneasiness began creeping up on him. At first, high-orbit satellite telemetry confirmed monster numbers were steadily decreasing as nature restored itself. That should have solved the problem. Instead, orbital scanners locked onto a dark, concentrated signal surging from the continent below. Standing beside a dead animal was a humanoid corruptor overflowing with pitch-black energy. The beast glares straight into the lens with chilling intelligence. Has the monster threat evolved into something far worse? Along with planetary environmental shifts, the monstrous corruptors underwent terrifying evolutions into intelligent humanoid beasts. To give surviving life a fighting chance, the doctor genetically engineered newly emerging subhuman races with innate combat abilities. But that alone was never going to stop the threat. That is why the old researcher saved his ultimate secret weapon exclusively for Jin. Jabbing a vial of glowing green nanomachine fluid directly into his arm, our cold-eyed lead does not hesitate. He doesn't waste time asking questions. Surging blue electricity crackles violently across his modified body. His perfect nanomachine compatibility instantly restructures matter, forging a lethal combat blade straight into his gloved hand. Talk about a handy upgrade. our boy tests the razor-sharp edge of the freshly generated steel knife. Can you imagine constructing high-tier military weaponry mid-combat using only your mind? That gives him an unbelievable tactical advantage. The hologram scientist grins, revealing that this injection is merely the initial power boost. Dozens of abandoned research laboratories filled with high-tier tech remain scattered across the vast continental map. But retrieving them means marching straight through corrupted wilderness. The scientist urges our cold-eyed lead to travel across the continent and witness this reborn era with his own eyes. Beyond the dark forest, newly evolved human warriors ride proudly through lands once devastated by corruptor hordes. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. The true trial lies ahead. Far across the continent, energetic messengers sprint along winding forest roads while grand medieval cities thrive alongside peaceful waterways. Inside quiet libraries, noble scholars pore over ancient scrolls in search of lost history. I definitely wouldn't want to be in their shoes when they discover what just reawakened. Flickering softly, the old researcher's hologram prepares to fade into history for good. He leaves one final request: I'm counting on you to take care of the world. Jin. Holding the glowing data cube in his hand, our cold-eyed lead nods in silent understanding. No doubts remain. Saris and the young girl come sprinting through the dense foliage, relieved to finally locate their guardian deity after searching the woods. Everyone was looking for you, you know, the beastman shouts out. Jin calmly turns to greet them as the recording fades. Except his quiet solitude is officially over. Saris and Hakama drag their savior back toward the village feast, eager to celebrate the hero who saved them. No rest for the weary. But as the young girl grabs his coat, Jin notices a familiar glimmer against her chest. Drawn to the golden pendant around her neck, our boy immediately recognizes a high-tech laboratory access key. Passed down through her family as a sacred relic, it unlocked his stasis chamber. I'm honestly amazed his creator planned centuries ahead like this. Realizing his ongoing debt to her clan, our weapon follows them back into the bustling settlement. Party time. Loud cheers and roaring bonfires fill the night air as the villagers gather for the victory feast. Can you believe the nerve of these people? Instead of showing respect, the ungrateful locals scoff at his slim frame, refusing to believe a scrawny human defeated a colossal monster threat. Total disrespect. Before Jin even responds, an enraged warrior steps up and violently confronts the crowd. Furious at their arrogant behavior, he barks that these cowards hid while a true hero fought. But the trouble in this village is far from over. As Saris and Hakama marvel at how fast his dark mood shifted, the village elders step forward. Bowing low before their savior, the grandmother offers heartfelt thanks, admitting the entire village would have perished without his intervention. When the elders insist on repaying their massive debt, our ultimate weapon turns down material rewards without hesitation. He demands tactical intel instead, stating, "If you insist, instead of items, I want information." He needs to map out this modern era. Caught off guard by his request, the grandmother urges him to travel straight to the royal capital of Kurumogia. As the majestic heart of the realm where travelers gather, it holds the answers to every secret of this reborn planet. While local merchants frequently brave the trail to trade rare wood silkworm silk, crossing the corrupted wilderness is a brutal trek. Even a walking mass destruction weapon needs a reliable navigator. That is why the elder assigns young Hakama as his official guide. But the little girl has her own mission in the capital, enrolling in a grand academy built to master her rare divine power. Except their road into the unknown is guaranteed to be hostile. Hearing about the journey, Saris immediately steps up, loudly insisting that he is far more qualified to serve as their savior's official guide. But the village elder isn't buying it for a single second. Is Lil Bro actually ready for this brutal trek? The beastman proudly brags that he plans to enlist in the capital's elite Holy Knight Order. The grandmother smirks without missing a beat, reminding him he couldn't even pass the academy's basic entrance requirements. Talk about a brutal reality check. Realizing the entrance test involves a grueling written exam, Jin learns the headstrong warrior failed simply because he lacked the brains. Still, hearing about these famed holy knights catches our boy's attention. Could these knights pose a genuine threat? Meanwhile, deep in the surrounding forest, an armored holy knight rides in on horseback. A breathless scout reports that the giant monster in Kodama village has already been eradicated. The knight expected to be the sole savior, making this news a total shock. Before they can regroup, massive clawed feet crush the grass behind the scout. A terrifying, intelligent corruptor looms over her from the shadows with a grotesque grin. Except their problems are only just beginning. With one clean strike, the elven holy knight cuts the ambushing monster in half, a trivial threat. Hearing that a mysterious warrior vanquished the eroder, the knight smirks, declaring, "I've also grown curious to meet the person who defeated it." Morning breaks over the restored wilderness, and our former Apex agent takes in the clean, fresh air of an Earth reborn. Staring out over the vibrant green valley, Jin Shidu reflects on the world's survival. Yet his quiet moment carries weight. He remembers the past, wishing Kagura could stand right beside him to behold this peaceful horizon. Duty calls. The young beastfolk attendant breaks his train of thought, stepping inside with a fresh stack of folded garments. He politely insists, "Please put them on." Our boy gets dressed without complaint, preparing his body for the tough road ahead. Down on the village path, the elders assemble to finalize their departure. The matriarch sternly instructs little Hakama to fulfill his duty as a guide properly. Meanwhile, the hot-headed beastfolk youth Saris throws a tantrum. He fumes because he wanted to travel beside the guardian deity himself instead of staying behind. Jin Shido steps forward and commends the hothead's combat movements from yesterday. He gives the young fighter a clear goal: "I'll be waiting for you in the royal capital." That simple phrase fires up Saris completely. He screams at the top of his lungs, promising to master his studies. Satisfied, the elders formally entrust Hakama to Jin's protection. With their send-off complete, the duo waves goodbye to the cheering villagers. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. I honestly respect how calm Jin stays before heading into monster territory. Leaving the village behind, our legendary warrior and his small guide step onto the long road toward the capital. Traveling across the lush wilderness, our former Apex agent follows his energetic young guide past scenic riverbeds and rushing waterfalls. As evening paints the sky gold, the little general points down the winding road ahead. Once night falls, the duo settles around a crackling campfire to rest their legs. Hakama confirms they are just 4 days away from the royal capital on foot. Sounds surprisingly close, right? The kid tilts his head, asking why the legendary warrior is so intent on gathering intel about this era. Jin offers a mysterious smile. "It's a secret." That smile masks a grim truth. Before his long slumber, Kagura warned him that the corruptors survived. Ancient history proved these abominations could only breed inside heavily polluted wastelands. Yet today, massive monsters emerge from untouched, crystal-clear lakes. That should have been impossible. Instead, it reveals a terrifying reality. The monsters are actively evolving. Spotting the intense, killer glare on his face, the kid nervously speaks up. "Honestly, I would be terrified too." Jin quickly softens his expression and apologizes for zoning out. Except his problems are only just beginning. Humanity is no longer enslaved by the abominations. Jin plans to observe how this era handles the corruptors before hunting the beasts himself. As they relax, he requests a simple change. He tells the little general to drop the divine titles and just call him Jin. Galloping hooves suddenly shatter the midnight silence. Heavy war horses thunder through the brush toward their campsite. Danger approaches fast. Both travelers snap to attention, watching the tree line as unknown riders break into the light. An armed patrol emerges from the gloom. The blonde elf riding front and center politely apologizes for the intrusion, asking for a quick moment of their time. His regal demeanor screams high authority. Our hero stays seated, coldly demanding an identity. The leader introduces himself as Argus Walton, commander of the 7th Division in the Royal Capital's Holy Knight Order. Jin casually sips his tea. Are these the famous defenders of the New World? That casual reaction triggers an explosive outburst. A fierce beastfolk knight erupts in fury, her teeth bared at Jin's total lack of respect. She screams for the commoners to know their place and stand before her commander. Talk about zero chill. Commander Argus steps down from his warhorse, sternly telling his aggressive subordinate to fall back before blood is spilled. Our former Apex agent stays totally relaxed, demanding to know what the rider meant by finding no mistake. Recognizing the danger, the Holy Knight commander quickly offers a diplomatic apology for his officer's disrespectful outburst. Argus directly questions where the two travelers came from and where their journey is taking them next. Before Jin can give a guarded answer, the little general chirps up between bites of bread, revealing they left Kodama village bound for the royal capital. Is blabbering their entire route really a smart move right now? That innocent answer sparks a vicious smirk across the aggressive beastfolk knight's face. Karina dismounts and draws her steel. She screams that no birth record of an inferior exists in Kodama village, claiming the travelers just exposed their own dark deception. That is a crazy level of disrespect. Our boy calmly processes the reveal, realizing this reborn civilization maintains detailed population registries. Argus abruptly halts Karina's wild charge. But that is when everything changes. The elven commander draws his own shining blade and levels it straight at Jin Shido. If these knights want to fight, I say bring it on. Accusing the duo of posing as helpless travelers to commit secret crimes, the Holy Knight Patrol readies their weapons for an arrest. Lil Bro refuses to surrender quietly. The 9-year-old menace erupts with a brilliant aura of green magical energy. Gritting his teeth to defend his companion as an armed clash becomes completely inevitable. Before the 9-year-old menace can unleash his green aura, radiant blades of light instantly materialize around him, locking the young guide in place. Commander Argus neutralizes the threat without breaking a sweat, praising the kid's divine power while completely pinning him down. You have to hand it to this elven leader's insane operational speed. Watching Lil Bro get effortlessly restrained, our legendary warrior quietly evaluates his opponent's tactical skill. Acknowledging the elite strength of the Holy Knights, Jin remains completely unfazed as danger escalates. The elven commander steps forward and presses his steel directly against Jin's throat. Argus demands their true origin, issuing a lethal ultimatum. I will cut you down right here and now. Does a simple blade actually intimidate an ancient Apex agent? Our boy doesn't even flinch, staring back with cold, silent indifference. Commander Argus holds his blade right at our boy's throat, demanding an answer under threat of immediate death. Does Jin panic? Not even a little. The veteran agent stays completely motionless while sharp steel rests against his chest, staring back with total composure. Noticeably tense under that icy glare, Argus waits as Jin lets out a quiet sigh and claims he originated from Kodama village. The knight's lieutenant yells that it is a blatant lie. But that is when everything changes. Argus smoothly sheathes his weapon, leaving his lieutenant completely stunned. The commander turns toward little Hakama to quickly verify the story. Sweating under the heavy pressure, the young kid nods and confirms that Jin is the guardian deity of Kodama village. That single line settles the confrontation. Argus accepts the explanation without questioning it further. When Jin asks if their business is finished, Argus confirms it and prepares to pull back. He mounts his horse and offers a polite apology, calling the aggression part of his duty. If the commander wants to back off now, I am fine with that. Before riding off, Argus asks if our boy is traveling to the royal capital next. Jin answers directly, confirming their shared destination. The commander nods and says they will likely meet again soon, except his problems are only just beginning. Argus offers to make amends if Jin ever visits the royal capital, leaving his lieutenant screaming in total disbelief. With a polite farewell, the commander turns his mount around and rides off, leaving our boy standing completely unfazed by the sudden retreat. Speeding down the mountain path, the outraged subordinate keeps yelling at her superior officer, demanding to know why they retreated from a suspicious stranger. In her mind, an inferior human should never get off that easily. Argus scoffs at her arrogance. He mutters quietly under his breath, wondering which one of them was actually the inferior fighter in that intense confrontation. Did she really think Jin was helpless? Dame Rika seconds his warning, leaving the hot-headed lieutenant completely stunned. She directly asks if her fellow knight failed to notice the overwhelming gap in strength staring right at them. Honestly, I can't blame her for missing it. See, Jin Shido wasn't just sitting passively by that campfire. Argus confesses to his squad that the moment he tried to make a hostile move, an unseen force stopped him dead in his tracks. When the steel rested against Jin's throat, Argus actually attempted to execute a strike. But the terrifying pressure surging straight from our boy's pocket paralyzed the commander's sword hand before he could move a muscle. That silent threat instantly settled the fight. Argus confesses to his squad that he was countered before he could even execute a strike. Dame Rika steps up to confirm her own divine magic failed completely against our boy as well. When she tried targeting Jin the exact same way she bound little Hakama, the nature spirits flatly refused to lend their strength. Talk about an absolute wall. That revelation exposes a terrifying reality. Argus explains that neutralizing their divine magic requires an immense gap in authority and raw power. In fact, he tells them only the Grand Master of all the Night Orders could ever pull off a feat on that level. Can you imagine standing on that ridiculous tier? The hot-headed rookie clenches her reins in disbelief, mortified that she completely missed the lethal pressure staring right at them. Argus calms her down, explaining that Jin Shido is an anomaly far beyond a fresh recruit's experience. Personally, I respect his quick decision to pull back. Galloping down the mountain trail, the squad realizes Jin was likely the one who resolved the Eridur crisis back in Kodama village. The vocal lieutenant questions if leaving such a massive wildcard alone is safe. But Argus orders them to keep our boy under observation while returning to the capital, leaving the mountain bandits for the local guild to clean up. Commander Argus contemplates the quiet veteran as his night squad gallops back toward the magnificent royal capital. If someone possessing that level of terrifying power becomes an ally, he could help resolve the massive crisis currently threatening their realm. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Under a bright blue sky, Jin Shido and little Hakama continue their journey along the mountain path. The young kid wonders if every knight in the capital possesses such terrifying combat strength. Jin clarifies that Argus is an exceptional case, standing at the absolute top tier among elite paladins. Hakama eagerly explains how fighters channel divine power by borrowing strength from nature spirits to execute spirit arts. Personally, I find it hilarious watching a young kid explain magic concepts to a 100-million-year-old ultimate weapon who lived through the Golden Age. Jin stares ahead as the true nature of this world's power clicks. What this primitive era worships as nature spirits are actually microscopic nanomachines surviving from ancient human technology. In this reborn world, lost science has been completely mistranslated into fantasy magic. Knowledge was lost. Recalling the hot-headed rookie lieutenant who screamed at him for being human, Jin lets out a tired sigh over the phrase inferior species. Waking up 100 million years later means adapting to a world populated by entirely new beast and elf races. Except his problems are only just beginning. Hakama shares ancient folklore detailing how surviving populations transformed to endure catastrophic environmental shifts. Some mutated into aquatic merfolk, while others developed insectoid wings. Over millions of years, every branch of humanity reshaped its physical form to match its surrounding territory. The realization settles heavy in Jin Shido's mind. Original humanity never suffered total extinction after all. Instead, scattered survivors adapted and evolved over 100 million long years. Did his ancient sacrifice actually create this strange new world? That evolutionary divide created a ruthless social hierarchy. Because unevolved humans lack divine spirit adaptations, elite beast races brand them inferior and force them directly into widespread slavery. Discrimination runs deep here. Little Hakama boldly rejects that cruel prejudice, insisting minor physical differences should never justify treating people like livestock. Jin Shido offers a rare smile, calling the kid a good person. Honestly, I respect the kid's solid moral compass. That quiet conversation stops cold. Dragging a worn wooden staff along the dirt trail, a mysterious traveler steps directly in front of the pair. Jin instantly freezes as a new figure blocks their path forward. Without warning, the battered traveler stumbles forward and crashes face down onto the dusty mountain path. Young Hakama rushes over in total panic to check on the wounded stranger. Did a hidden enemy attack this mystery person? Jin Shido steps up to inspect the unconscious traveler. Staring closely at the bruised face, a shocking physical detail catches his eye. The wanderer possesses ordinary rounded human ears. I guess baseline survivors aren't completely extinct after all. The battered stranger lies gasping on the dusty path, covered in nasty scrapes and heavy bruises. Hakama cradles the collapsed traveler, desperate to help. Seeing the awful state of the kid's body, our boy steps forward without hesitation to inspect the damage. Jin gathers glowing energy to treat the victim's severe injuries immediately. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. The stranger's eyes snap open with killer intent, pulling Hakama into a chokehold. The hostage-taker draws a blade against her neck, screaming, "If you move, I'll kill." Talk about a dirty setup. Facing a deadly hostage situation, Jin stays completely cold and unbothered. He analyzes the scene in seconds, realizing this entire helpless act was calculated bait, which means the actual threat is already closing in around them. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. A distorted, shimmering silhouette suddenly materializes right out of thin air on the dirt path. The bandit leader disengages his active cloaking with a cocky grin, shouting, "Good job, Powell." Two heavily armed beastmen mercenaries step out beside their chief to lock down the area. Their ambush relied on high-tech stealth camouflage, deploying active nanomachines to take in surrounding light and make the user invisible. Now our general faces a coordinated surprise attack. The mercenary commander steps forward, pressing a sharp steel blade directly against Jin Shidu's neck. With heavily armed beastmen surrounding him and Hakama pinned under Powell's knife, the chief demands to know what country this well-dressed stranger comes from. Trapped in a tight chokehold, Hakama panics as radiant green energy suddenly flares around her body. Her uncontrolled surge of power startles the captors, leaving the terrified young girl trembling against the deadly edge pressed to her skin. Even with a deadly weapon resting against his chest, Jin stays cold and unbothered, calmly telling Hakama that magic isn't meant for harming people. But that is when everything changes. The bandit leader sneers in triumph, realizing their bait pulled in a rare divine power user. When the beastman mercenary gets right in his face to ask if Jin commands divine power too, our boy just offers a smug smile in response. Infuriated by the disrespect, the giant brute delivers a violent boot straight into his ribs. The chief barks at his soldier to back off immediately, warning him not to ruin valuable slave merchandise. They scoff at the idea of an inferior human possessing true strength, completely unaware of the immortal monster standing right in front of them. Hakama instantly recognizes these thugs as the ruthless slave traders mentioned earlier by the Holy Knight. With a dirty captor crushing her neck and a deadly edge pressed close, the terrified girl realizes they plan to sell her off like common cattle. The bandit commander steps forward to finish the trap, channeling crackling electrical magic across his outstretched palm. That should have triggered an immediate fight. Instead, the surging shockwave blasts Hakama into dark unconsciousness before she can process the threat. Hakama suddenly snaps awake inside a cold iron cage, gasping for air as memories of the ambush flood back. A shirtless Jin sits calmly right beside her, softly asking if her body sustained any damage. She nods nervously, but her dread returns in full force. Where are they? Our general smoothly explains they were dragged straight into the slave traders' underground hideout. Looking past the heavy steel bars, they observe rows of metal cages stretching across the room, all packed with helpless captives. Starved baseline humans sit slumped on the cold stone floor with completely broken spirits, while a green-haired beastman girl shivers in absolute terror. I have a feeling these foolish kidnappers just picked the absolute worst immortal monster to toss behind bars. Hakama stares in utter confusion at the sight of Jin sitting comfortably across the cell floor in his underwear. Our boy smoothly explains that the slave traders stripped his clothing to sell as rare antique fabric, casually adding he spent most of his previous life unclothed anyway. Why give up without a fight? The young girl angrily presses our general on why he allowed himself to be dragged underground, knowing full well he possessed the raw power to wipe out these weak thugs instantly. Before he can answer, the heavy iron door clangs open. Powell enters the dimly lit dungeon behind a giant beastman guard, carrying a small wooden tray of bread to feed the newly locked-up captives. Hakama violently rattles the cell bars in boiling rage, confronting the young traitor who set them up. Powell quietly slides the tray inside, confessing he fully expects her hatred and never counted on earning forgiveness for his crimes. Jin in by telling the remorseful young actor he is actually kind. Sounds crazy, right? If you ask me, our boy is being way too forgiving. The general cold-bloodedly defines true villains as ruthless monsters who inflict harm without ever wasting a single thought on guilt or redemption. Jin calmly reaches up to grip the heavy dungeon door. With terrifying strength, he warps the solid iron bars wide open, like soft clay. Powell stares in absolute disbelief as our boy creates his own exit path. He didn't even break a sweat. Stepping casually out of the cage, the 100-million-year general reveals he intentionally allowed their capture to locate the underground hideout. Is our general crazy? Not even close. He immediately asks Powell where the captors are holding the hostage he's trying to protect. How did he unravel the trickery so fast? Simple. The severe physical trauma covering Powell's body was completely real. The young actor truly stood on the verge of death when they first found him on the mountain path. Jin cold-bloodedly points out that ruthless slave traders would never inflict such brutal beatings on their own actual members just for bait. If you ask me, that logic is ironclad. The kid was clearly blackmailed into serving as their decoy. The broken youngster collapses, tears streaming down his face as he confesses the horrifying truth. The mercenary syndicate slaughtered his parents in cold blood and abducted his helpless little brother. They threatened to sell the boy overseas if Powell refused to lure unsuspecting travelers into their trap. Tears stream down Powell's face as he cries that protecting his abducted brother was his only choice. Hakama watches in utter dread while a suffocating, dark aura erupts around the general. Scum like this must pay. Hakama asks if he surrendered on purpose just to pull off a daring rescue operation. The general offers a cold, menacing grin, comparing these syndicate villains to stubborn grease stains. Why leave any alive? If even one escapes, the infection will only spread to cause more suffering elsewhere. A heavy thud suddenly echoes down the stone dungeon corridor. Before the beastman guard can even turn around, a terrifying kick blasts the massive wooden door off its hinges, flattening the thug instantly. Stepping casually through the rising smoke, the immortal warrior vows to rip this entire syndicate out by the roots. I almost feel sorry for these doomed kidnappers. See, 100 million years ago, long before the corruptors ravaged the planet, our boy is just a dirty kid wandering futuristic neon streets. He has no family to protect him and zero power to his name, only a cold pair of blue eyes watching the city fall apart around him. At first, he looks up to the famous heroes broadcasted on giant news screens for busting drug cartels. Is justice really that simple? Not exactly. He quickly realizes that a world constantly begging for justice is already overflowing with human garbage, and no hero is coming to save him. When local syndicate thugs corner him in an alleyway, cracking their knuckles with his bounty picture in hand, they think the young monster is easy pickings. The lead bruiser casually grabs our boy by the collar, lifting him like a worthless rag doll. If he could just live a normal life, nothing would be better. But his harsh environment refuses to allow it. That should have solved their assignment. Instead, it creates a bigger problem. The kid drives his fist straight into the giant's chest, shattering the man's arm and leaving the gang screaming in terror. Nice payback. From that day on, he never stops fighting. As the years pass, our boy transforms into a lethal agent, obliterating every syndicate, mafia boss, and human parasite in his path. He sits perched atop a mountain of crushed bodies, except his problems are only just beginning. Then one day, a scientist steps into the bloody facility and extends a hand toward the young monster perched atop a mountain of crushed bodies. "You were born in the wrong world," the stranger tells him. That simple proposition changes his destiny forever, offering an escape into something far more dangerous. Back in the present dungeon, humanity's ultimate weapon casually strolls down the hallway while dragging a battered guard by his hair across the wooden floor. Panic erupts through the corridor. Where did this monster even break in from? Beat-up goons already cover the floor while the remaining guards scramble, frantically demanding to know his objective. Our boy offers nothing more than a cold smirk. He hurls the unconscious brute straight down the hall like a projectile. One defender barely catches his airborne comrade in complete shock. That move should have bought them defensive positioning. Instead, it creates an even bigger problem. Before the beastman can even swing his spiked club, Jinshadu blitzes straight into his personal space. Speed is everything. The enemy freezes, helpless against an opponent who moves faster than sight. Another thug smashes into the solid wall behind them with brutal force. I gotta admit, watching arrogant slavers get folded like paper never gets old. Jin stands tall over the carnage, glowing blue eyes locking onto the last surviving guard as the trembling wreck drops to the floor, gasping out the only words left. "Who the hell are you?" Deep within the dark holding cells, blood-curdling screams echo through the stone corridors, sending panic through the trapped prisoners. They tremble in fear, wondering what kind of nightmare is unfolding right outside their door. But Powell's little brother steps forward without a hint of doubt. He boldly assures the crowd that Jin Shido is a true guardian god who will set them all free. The brave kid orders everyone to march straight toward the exit, as Jin instructed. Yet the blue-haired captive hesitates in fear. She knows the syndicate leader possesses terrifying divine power, and she worries brute strength alone won't save them. Hope is fragile. Meanwhile, inside the hideout's main office, that brutal syndicate leader is already cowering on the floor in sheer terror. Humanity's ultimate weapon strolls right in, casually grabbing a massive elf guard by his face like a rag doll. The panicked boss scrambles backward, desperately screaming out bribes of gold and endless wealth just to stay alive. When money fails, the pathetic slaver points toward the cages filled with terrified children, telling Jin to take any slave he wants. This is a crazy level of disrespect. Can a ruthless monster like him really be bought? Not exactly. Our boy looks down with cold disgust, offering only 4 deadly words. "Are you finished talking?" With zero effort, Jin snaps the massive guard's neck and dumps his body onto the rug like trash. Speed is everything. The helpless tyrant sits trembling in horror as his dark empire crumbles around him. The pathetic boss panics when his spirit arts completely fail to affect humanity's ultimate weapon. He stumbles backwards, staring in absolute terror at the muscular titan towering over him. Jin Shido casually steps forward, looking down at the trembling coward with cold contempt. Is justice really this easy? Not exactly. "It's a relief you're just a half-baked villain," Jin mutters. The rogue agent mercilessly breaks down the villain's psyche, pointing out how cheap thugs always look down on others until they start losing. The cornered boss grits his teeth, realizing his usual tricks won't save him. If you ask me, watching arrogant scum crumble like paper never gets old. Jin's icy stare seals the man's fate. Driven to total desperation, the slaver lunges across the room and slams down a hidden emergency lever. Heavy mechanical gears grind. A massive iron door slides open behind him. That move should have bought him safety. Instead, it creates an even bigger problem. Emerging from the darkness inside the cell is a massive purple beast radiating corrupt energy. Jin turns his head, recognizing the creature as an eritor. Danger surges through the air. The beast's crimson eye glows with lethal intent. The boss cackles maniacally, revealing he obtained this illegal specimen for a high-profile client. If begging won't work, he will use brute devastation instead. The behemoth steps forward, shattering the stone floor under its claws while roaring violently. It flexes its massive frame, unleashing a surge of purple aura right in front of Jin. But his gaze remains unflinching, except his problems are only just beginning. The terrifying eroder lunges down with devastating fury, aiming to pulverize the intruder into dust. That strike should have crushed him instantly. Instead, Jin Shido catches the monster's massive arms bare-handed without giving an inch. The syndicate boss stares with wide eyes, completely speechless at the insane display of strength. Humanity's ultimate weapon casually reveals that he was born with a superhuman constitution, packed with several times the muscle fibers of any normal person. Brute force is his specialty. Jin effortlessly pushes the massive behemoth back and drives a crushing blow straight into its armored torso. Against an eritor, I won't hold back, Jin states flatly as brilliant cyan energy crackles around his arms. If you ask me, watching high-tier monsters get wiped out never gets old. He unleashes a torrential beam of divine power, completely disintegrating the giant beast into dark ash. Destruction is absolute. The crime boss sits paralyzed in terror on the floor, watching the smoldering remains of his ultimate weapon fade away. Can anyone truly survive against a warrior who wields divine power on top of ridiculous physical strength? The pathetic slaver clasps his hands, desperately begging Jin to spare his life. Does Jin grant him mercy? Not even close. Delivering a cold, final no, He smashes his fist straight down onto the coward's face, crushing the syndicate leader into the stone floor and bringing total annihilation to the entire operation. Our boy throws his trench coat back on after completely crushing the slave syndicate boss into the floor. Gear secured. That should have solved the main problem. Now it is time to clean up the crime scene. He turns to the cage and reassures the terrified young prisoners, "I'll get everyone out of here soon." The children break into tears of pure relief. But before breaking their iron bars, he needs actionable intel. The ultimate agent raids the executive desk to secure physical evidence of their dark network. He pops open a hidden drawer, pulling out a file filled with mysterious writing. Jin Shido inspects the document with absolute focus, only for his cold glare to crumble. He admits, "I got no clue on what this says." Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. 100 million years of rapid cultural evolution leaves our legendary warrior completely illiterate. Honestly, I respect the honesty. Shifting tactics, he kneels over the monster's crystallized remains. What were these syndicate thugs planning to do with captured corruptors? To get answers, he taps into floating nanomachine sensors, bringing up holographic camera records from the past week. His eyes narrow as a disturbing detail surfaces in the footage, but that is when everything changes. The holographic surveillance footage plays back a chilling past conversation inside the dungeon. The syndicate boss taunts his subordinate right in front of a caged corruptor, sneering, "Very soon in this country, something interesting is going to happen." Jin Shido inspects the recording with a deadly glare. The slave syndicate wasn't just trafficking helpless captives for easy profit. They were actively weaponizing wild corruptors to unleash a kingdom-wide disaster. This is a crazy level of disrespect. Shortly after, out in the sunlit town square, official guards march the captured syndicate thugs away in heavy iron chains. As the crowd whispers in confusion, a young blue-haired girl suddenly freezes in shock. Is that who she thinks it is? Her missing little brother Nino comes sprinting through the cobblestone street right alongside our boy. The young kid cries out in pure joy, charging forward until both siblings collide in a desperate, tearful hug. Their nightmare is finally over. She clutches her brother tight and bows deeply before the ultimate agent, praising him with tears in her eyes. "Sir Deity, thank you so much. That should have solved the problem." Instead, an even deadlier conspiracy looms over the kingdom. Jin Shido brushes off the deity title without missing a beat, turning his cold focus to the armed captors dragging the thugs away. Nino's sister clarifies that these aren't territorial soldiers, but royal guild staff she personally summoned. She points toward a massive ram-horned elder taking notes nearby, introducing him as the town's guild master. Can you blame our boy for staying on high alert in an unfamiliar era? The horned elder approaches Jin, asking directly, "Could you be the one responsible for this incident?" Upon receiving a calm confirmation, Guildmaster Padrak bows deeply to express his sincere gratitude for taking down the syndicate. Padrak inspects the ultimate agent with sharp scrutiny. Standing before him is a man without a single scratch after single-handedly annihilating an entire criminal cell. The elder's instincts scream that he is dealing with an absolute monster in human form. Honestly, I respect the old man's sharp intuition. When Jin questions why the local lord isn't managing criminal arrests, Padrak reveals the kingdom's hierarchy. Local lords lack enforcement power. Only guild staff sworn to the king handle high-level crimes. Even if Lord Shapion stepped out of line, they would answer directly to the throne. Jin processes the kingdom's political structure. The local lord operates like a city mayor, while the royal guild functions as law enforcement. But when the conversation turns to Lord Shapion, our boy senses an evil scheme lurking under the surface. The ram-horned elder unrolls the ledger recovered from the syndicate hideout, revealing a complete black market client list. Padrak vows to arrest every buyer in a single sweep, prompting the ultimate agent to check if the corrupt lord is named. Naturally, the slippery noble wiped his name completely clear from the paper trail. Jin grunts in total disgust. With no physical proof to drag Shapion down yet, he turns his focus to the victims. Resting a hand on young Nino's head, the former soldier asks Padrak what will happen to the rescued prisoners. The elder admits that while identified captives return home, lost orphans receive zero support. Systemic failure leaves these children stranded. With no shelters available, employment is their only hope, but discrimination against the so-called inferior species shuts every door. Our boy sighs at the relentless bigotry. Ancient prejudice never dies, does it? Jin wants to secure a future for the blue-haired siblings, but finding work seems impossible. But that is when everything changes. A sudden realization flashes across his mind. Jin asks the young siblings if they would take a job if he found them one. The blue-haired girl eagerly accepts without hesitation. Our boy smirks as a devious scheme takes shape in his mind. He recalls the proud elf commander who offered him future assistance. That lord's grand estate is about to become their new workplace. Meanwhile, at the Argus estate in the royal capital, a unit of armored knights returns from an expedition. Out of nowhere, Commander Argus shivers. A sudden, unexplained chill runs straight down his spine. He quickly brushes off his officer's concern, completely unaware of the chaos heading his way. Dismounting his stallion, Lord Argus dismisses his troops for the day. The royal knights salute, wishing their commander rest after an exhausting journey. Can you blame them for wanting a break? Little do they know, peaceful days are officially over for this household. Argus strides inside his grand mansion, greeted by rows of bowing maids and servants. He casually asks his head butler if everything has remained normal during his absence, but the butler and staff instantly break into a nervous sweat. If you ask me, someone definitely turned his estate upside down while he was gone. Lord Argus senses the uneasy silence in his grand mansion, asking his staff if a major crisis occurred during his absence. The head butler bows low, stepping close to whisper urgent news directly into the commander's ear. From the upper balcony, a stern noblewoman glares down, watching the confidential report with sharp suspicion. Can you blame her for staying on high alert? Dismissing his butler, the officer struggles to process the disturbing revelation. A far greater threat has struck the kingdom's heart. Wild eridors are invading the royal capital, tearing through populated streets while helpless civilians flee in terror. The commander realizes someone deliberately smuggled these deadly monsters inside. His suspicion zeroes in on Harnisk Academy, a heavily fortified institution that strictly denies access to all outsiders. Are corrupt officials orchestrating this terror scheme from within the academy? To prevent a nationwide catastrophe, the commander desperately needs a powerful ally. Meanwhile, Guildmaster Padrak waves goodbye in the sunlit square as Jin Shido sets off toward the capital with the rescued children. Our boy is walking straight into the storm. 3 days after completely wiping out the mountain bandits, Jin Shido marches his young companions down the valley path. The blue-haired boy trembles with anxiety, questioning if a helpless child can actually find honest work in the royal capital. Our silver-haired agent calms him down. Don't worry. Reading and math guarantee a future. The kid beams with newfound confidence. Mindset is everything. Moments later, the Beast Ear guide points toward the horizon where colossal stone battlements rise high into the clouds. The ancient weapon stares at the sprawling fortress city in silent amazement. So this is the royal capital. The sheer scale is breathtaking. They step directly into a bustling metropolis overflowing with raw energy. The children stand completely awestruck at the magnificent architecture and crowded thoroughfares. Can you really blame them? I would react the exact same way after spending an eternity sleeping underground in a cold pod. Nino breaks down the tactical reality of the city's supply chain and economy. The royal capital relies entirely on external imports, drawing rare trade goods and specialty merchants from every corner of the realm, including Kodama Village. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Jin scans the vibrant crowd, taking in insect folk, fishmen, and cat-eared vendors trading in pristine markets. Earth did not just recover after 100 million years. It spawned a thriving multiracial civilization. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one because enemy infiltrators are already lurking inside the capital walls. On the surface, public safety looks decent enough while beastfolk children play in the open street. But as our silver-haired agent glances into a dim alley, his sharp eyes catch shady merchants trading captured merfolk. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it proves every era carries its own rot. Shifting focus back to long-term survival, Jin asks Nino when the entrance exam for Harnisk Academy takes place. Next week. That leaves just enough time. However, an elite noble girl overhears their conversation, glaring in pure disgust at beastfolk daring to enroll. If you ask me, that snob needs a reality check. As night settles across the fortress city, the crew checks into a warm room at a local inn. The overjoyed children leap directly onto plush mattresses with wild excitement. Can you really blame them? Finally, proper shelter after endless hardship. While the children sleep peacefully, our boy assesses his remaining coin pouch. Cash rules everything in this era. The reward from wiping out the mountain bandits provided starting funds, but split loot and living costs mean it will not last long. Securing honest work for the young pair becomes top priority. Contacting the elite knight commander would solve every obstacle in a single move. But how does an unknown traveler gain an audience with high nobility without proper status? Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Our ancient soldier turns his tactical focus to the realm's greatest threat, the corruptors. Seeing corrupt nobles and shady figures already plotting to harness these beasts for evil, Jin Shido swears to prevent the past from repeating itself. He refuses to watch humanity fall a second time. Seeking answers, he asks his beast ear guide how commoners research information in this age. Nino explains that while books are rare in small villages, the royal capital maintains a massive public library. Our boy smiles with renewed confidence. Those archives might hold critical leads on the secret laboratory left behind by Kagura. Is it really that simple? The polite receptionist flatly shuts them down at the desk. Access denied. Books are hoarded as vital kingdom assets, reserved exclusively for recognized academy students, faculty, and high-ranking capital nobility. Unregistered commoners are completely barred from entering. Talk about rigid gatekeeping. To make matters worse, an even bigger obstacle stands in his way. Our silver-haired agent cannot even read this modern language. See, the kids have been teaching him basic letters by the campfire, but mastering a whole alphabet takes time. If he doesn't learn fast, he's completely helpless. Without library access, his entire mission stalls dead in its tracks. The former soldier facepalms in the middle of the street, desperate to find a tactical loophole through the realm's strict rules. But as he sighs, two hooded infiltrators lock their eyes directly onto his back. Danger is closing in. Two hooded assassins lock their eyes onto our boy from behind, marking his group as their next target. Before Jin Shido can even take another step down the alley, one thug steps out from the shadows. Danger closes in fast. The beast-eared attacker lunges forward with a magic-infused ambush strike. But our silver-haired agent catches the fist cold without flinching an inch. If you ask me, that was an amateur mistake. Holding his enemy pinned, Jin calmly mocks the city's terrible public safety right to his face. Refusing to yield, the assassin unleashes raw divine magic. Jin instantly deflects the strike skyward, detonating a colossal explosion high above the rooftops. Are these mercenaries completely insane? The sudden blast shakes the whole district, sending terrified civilians screaming in total panic. The smug hitman boasts about Jin's sharp instincts while preparing his next spell. Behind them, Nino clutches her little brother in utter horror. Channeling divine power right in the middle of the royal capital is pure madness. When our ancient soldier demands to know their true purpose, the hitman admits someone paid them to wipe out his entire crew. A targeted contract hit? The thugs laugh, telling him to flee the fortress city if he wants to survive. But as they mock him, Jin Shido just smirks. He needed a way to reach high-ranking nobility, and now his enemies are delivering the clues directly to him. The beast-eared assassin lunges forward with a wild punch, expecting an easy kill. But our silver-haired agent catches his wrist cold mid-strike. Without missing a single beat, Jin swings his arm, slamming the attacker head-first onto the hard cobblestones. That is how you handle sloppy amateurs. Furious, the red-haired hitman ignites raw flame magic, hurling a lethal fire blast straight at his target. But our boy sidesteps the blazing arc like it is standing still. Can these low-level thugs actually pose a real threat to an ancient weapon? Not in a million years. Before the smoke even clears, Jin surges through the haze and grabs the hitman directly by the throat. He hoists the assassin high into the air with one hand staring cold into his eyes. If you want to give danger, come back after you've gotten stronger. Dark killing intent radiates from the former soldier, suffocating the entire street. The panicked hitman trembles in pure horror, gasping for breath. How can a supposed inferior human possess such overwhelming, crushing dominance? His confidence crumbles into dust. Suddenly, an authoritative yell cuts through the alley as an armored female guard steps onto the scene with a heavy spear. Annoyed that her day off is ruined by street brawling, she aims her weapon directly at Jin, declaring everyone is under arrest. But that is when everything changes. Jin Shidu smirks as the guard intervenes. Causing a scene was his exact plan all along. But as the dog-eared knight points her spear, her eyes widen, recognizing him as the commoner from before. The moment the dust settles, the hot-headed holy knight corners Jin Shido right in the middle of the street. She levels her spear straight at our boy, accusing him of starting chaos the second he steps into the royal capital. Talk about zero chill. Before the guard can haul him off, a frightened bystander timidly steps forward to defend the ancient agent. She testifies that the downed attacker struck first, forcing the fierce spearwoman into a speechless realization. It was total self-defense. Inspecting the unconscious attackers sprawled across the pavement, the guard finally recognizes their faces. Turns out, these troublemakers belong to the prestigious Harnisk Academy. She grabs her head in sheer frustration. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. Jin Shido smirks, openly asking why high-ranking holy knights are stuck pulling basic street patrol. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. She brushed it off, claiming she was merely looking for a quick bite to eat while her squad dragged the troublemakers away. Underneath that casual attitude, her eyes narrow with intense suspicion. Neutralizing skilled academy fighters without even breaking a sweat is no small feat. Honestly, I would be sweating bullets too. What kind of monster did she just cross paths with? Just as the hot-headed spearwoman turns to leave, Jin stops her right in her tracks. Instead of walking away, he requests her to guide him directly to his next target inside the capital. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Moments later, at the luxurious Argus estate, the ancient agent sits right down on the sofa, locks eyes with the stunned elf lord, and bluntly demands to be hired. Honestly, if he pulled that on me, I would hire him on the spot. Looking at the growing squad of kids sitting on his furniture, the lord can barely wrap his head around the situation. Our boy calmly explains he stumbled across the bandit gang and liberated their young captives. When asked about the fate of the bandits, Jin casually admits he battered the entire gang solo before handing the rest to the guild. The lord grips his chin in sheer disbelief. Did this guy seriously dismantle a criminal network alone? The guard points out he has zero obligation to take care of these orphan children. But our boy refuses to back down. He promises that since he saved them, he will take full responsibility and see it through to the end. The elf lord ponders for a moment before making a decisive call. He officially accepts both blue-haired siblings as live-in mansion servants, sparking instant joy in the little ones. But that is when everything changes. Lord Argus fixes a sharp glare on our boy, revealing there is a heavy condition attached to his generosity. He wants Jin to take up a position as an instructor. Dressed in crisp new uniforms, the young orphans bow in deep gratitude toward their benefactor. I definitely would not mind a boss this generous. Our boy gives a calm nod of approval as the kids celebrate their fresh start. The elf lord sternly instructs his head staff to train the new recruits fairly without any racial bias. With their immediate safety secured, the group begins heading deeper down the hall. Walking beside the noble, the ancient agent cuts straight through the polite talk. What hidden agenda is the noble pushing now? Lord Argus drops a massive bomb, demanding Jin infiltrate prestigious Harnisk Academy as an undercover asset. Our boy narrows his eyes, demanding a clear explanation. High stakes are at play here. The Lord warns that multiple shadow factions are actively warring for control over the entire kingdom. Lord Argus delivers grim news about the kingdom's crumbling leadership. The king is stricken with a fatal illness. Time is running out. Consequently, a fierce succession dispute has already erupted behind closed doors. Rival factions with zero right to the crown are moving to seize power. They unleash terrifying invaders upon the capital, creating chaos to destabilize the realm while innocent citizens pay the price. Can this kingdom withstand such betrayal? Jin Shido processes the tactical implications. High-ranking nobles are orchestrating this chaos from the shadows. That means the ancient agent must remain sharp, as multiple dangerous enemies lurk within the royal capital. Walking down the grand hallway, the noble insists they must locate the enemy's stronghold immediately. All signs point straight to Harnisk Academy. If you ask me, this infiltration is getting dangerous fast. He knocks firmly on an ornate door. The heavy wooden doors open to reveal their contact inside. Relaxing on the sofa is Melia Olton, the Lord's younger sister, and a student at the academy. She will serve as Jin Shido's guide for the infiltration. Melia looks over her fan. She scoffs arrogantly, asking, "Don't tell me you're having this inferior species do that undercover mission." This noble's attitude is a crazy level of disrespect. Lord Argus scolds his younger sister for her brazen insolence, but Melia doubles down on her elitist disdain. She scoffs that hiring a human is a direct insult to noble blood. Jin Shido merely chuckles at her bigotry while the embarrassed elf lord profusely apologizes. The spearwoman quietly warns that Melia harbors intense racial bias, though the ancient agent dryly points out she shares that exact same prejudice. Unfazed, the noble girl snaps her fan open. Can an uneducated outsider truly teach elite students? The rescued orphan innocently blurts out that the veteran agent cannot even read. Melia instantly rejects him, declaring his appointment completely out of the question. But the young girl steps up fiercely, insisting his true strength goes far beyond basic letters. Melia pauses, re-evaluating the strange veteran in front of her. She admits he has enough raw power to crush troublemaking academy students, yet her eyes narrow, with cold disdain. She warns that being an instructor requires far more than raw violence. Melia storms out and slams the heavy door shut, leaving the elf lord clutching his face in sheer embarrassment. The hot-headed knight suddenly grips her head in frustration. If you ask me, those academy troublemakers from earlier were definitely pulling orders from Melia herself. Lord Argus apologizes profusely for his sister's extreme rudeness, but Jin Shido dismisses the insult without a second thought. Cutting straight to business, the veteran agent asks what subject he is expected to teach. The noble reveals he wants Jin to instruct students in the fundamentals of spirit arts. Lord Argus outlines the 4 core elements: ignition, discharge, freezing, and healing. He notes that mastering even 2 of these basic arts is more than sufficient for an academy instructor. Our boy looks back completely unfazed, dryly asking, "That's all?" The elf lord stares back in total disbelief. Can this man actually wield high-tier spirit arts that only a tiny fraction of the population can manifest? Connecting the dots, Jin recalls the bandit leader he crushed earlier. In this modern era, even low-level magic is considered exceptional. A confident smirk flashes across his face as radiant spirit energy erupts from his open hand. He vows, "I suppose I'll overturn the common sense of this era just a little bit." The ancient agent is about to turn Harnisk Academy upside down. 1 week later, entrance exam day arrives at Harnisk Academy. Dense crowds of hopeful applicants gather at the main gates while staff process registration papers for the grueling trials ahead. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Tension hangs heavy over the crowd. Clerks rapidly scribble student records at the desk. Meanwhile, deep inside the carpeted corridor, an official guides our ancient hero alongside an armored holy knight. The guide bows respectfully, honored to host such elite guests. Respect comes easy in these high halls. Our boy leans forward, instantly catching the slip. "Your turn?" The blonde knight clarifies that once a year the order rotates members to appoint a special instructor for the academy. This term, that duty fell to his squad. Jin Shido quietly absorbs the news. As they march down the long corridor, heavy doubt settles in Jin Shido's mind. Am I really the right person for this? Personally, I think he is overqualified. The Beastman official remains completely silent, watching our quiet protagonist with intense suspicion. The official reaches the grand double doors and opens them wide. "The headmaster and the board are waiting for you." Beyond the threshold sits the academy headmaster with clasped hands, watching with piercing eyes. But that is when everything changes. The blonde knight greets the academy headmaster with complete military respect. It turns out he graduated as top valedictorian before rising rapidly through the Holy Knight Order. The headmaster warmly thanks him for agreeing to assist the academy faculty during these difficult times. She acknowledges their exhausting campaign against the corrupting monsters, as well as internal political conflicts within the ranks. But that is no excuse to show less respect. Her eyes narrow sharply, locking her cold gaze straight onto our quiet protagonist. She openly questions whether this unarmored human is truly qualified to serve as an official instructor here. The entire room falls dead silent while the Beastman officials stare with heavy suspicion. Can you really blame them for doubting his plain appearance? The elite knight steps forward to defend Jin Shido without a single second of hesitation. He confirms our ancient hero possesses far greater combat mastery than anyone in their unit. Personally, I think that is a massive understatement. Hearing that endorsement, the headmaster grudgingly accepts. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. The arrogant Beastman official erupts in pure rage, furiously pointing directly at our boy. He shouts, "In this historic and sacred academy, an inferior species has never been allowed to teach." Gita screams that appointing an inferior species will humiliate the entire academy. Lord Rudman immediately backs him up, warning that elite noble students and faculty will riot if a human steps into the classroom. Sounds simple, right? Not when prejudice runs this deep. The headmaster nods in agreement with their concerns, but turns to Jin to hear his side of the story. Unfazed by the blatant disrespect, our boy steps forward and bows with complete composure, introducing himself as Jin Shido from Kodama Village. Personally, I love how cool he stays under pressure. Watching him closely, the headmaster quietly acknowledges his unbelievable self-control. Taking severe insults without flinching for a single second is no small feat. Can anyone really blame her for being intrigued? Jin's eyes flash with cold intensity as he cuts straight to the core of the issue. He looks the board dead in the eye and asks, "Am I unfit to be an instructor because of my inferior lineage? Or because I lack the ability?" The headmaster grins, declaring that raw power is all that matters in these halls. If he possesses true combat mastery, their lineage complaints mean nothing. She leans forward, issuing a direct challenge. "Can you prove that you do?" The Holy Knight proposes testing Jin's skills on the arena floor right away. Within minutes, the group moves down to the Academy's massive spirit arts training ground to set up the duel. Gita taunts our ancient hero in the open arena, boasting that the empty stands will spare him from public humiliation. Jin Shido does not even bother answering. Is this loudmouth beastman seriously trying to pick a fight? The headmaster steps forward and lays out the rules of engagement. The conditions are simple. Jin must fight using only spirit arts to prove his worth as an instructor. Personally, I think these officials have no idea what they are asking for. News of the sudden mock battle spreads quickly among the curious students watching from the balconies above. They whisper in shock as Professor Gita himself steps up to enforce the Academy's authority. Jin closes his eyes in absolute boredom. How pointless. Above the arena floor, the headmaster and Lord Rudman watch with smug expectations, waiting to see what an ordinary human can do. Even the elite Holy Knight breaks into a nervous sweat on the balcony. This will be his very first time seeing our boy unleash his real strength in battle. Except his problems are only just beginning. Deep down, Gita scoffs at human potential, firmly convinced inferior species possess weak physical capabilities and can barely channel divine power. He looks across the wide arena floor with a malicious smirk, eager to begin the duel. Will his foolish prejudice cost him everything? The arrogant Beastman professor makes the first move, launching a massive fireball straight at his opponent. Jin slides smoothly across the stone floor, dodging the blazing inferno without breaking a sweat. Watching from the balconies high above, the Beastman students gasp in complete surprise. Gita roars in frustration, charging electric aura around his hands. He unleashes a non-stop barrage of golden energy blasts across the entire arena floor. Jin vaults effortlessly into the air, flipping gracefully over the fiery explosions. Personally, I think our boy is just playing around. Gita scoffs as Jin lands smoothly, shouting that running is all a human can do. He loudly boasts about graduating as top valedictorian before channeling a massive flame vortex. Can anyone really blame him for underestimating an ancient hero? Facing the gigantic wall of fiery destruction, Jin simply exhales a calm sigh. He is completely done playing along, except his arrogant opponent's problems are only just beginning. The 100-million-year veteran decides he is done messing around. Landing smoothly after dodging, he gathers ancient spirit arts into his hand. Glowing cyan energy swirls around a dark center as he prepares to give them a tiny glimpse of real authority. Black spatial rifts tear through the arena ceiling. Before the loudmouth beastman can even process what is happening, massive gravitational force slams him violently face down into the stone floor. Heavy pressure shatters the ground beneath him instantly. Up on the high balconies, the headmaster and noble board freeze in total shock. Even the elite Holy Knight breaks into a nervous sweat. Can anyone really blame them for being speechless? Personally, I think this brutal lesson was long overdue. Pinned to the floor, Gita groans in terror, wondering what just crushed him. Our ancient hero calmly walks over with a cold smirk. He looks down and asks, "I simply manipulated the gravity around you a little. Or was that a spirit art you're unfamiliar with?" Adjusting his leather gloves, Jin delivers a final warning to the entire faculty, not just the students, but all of you as well. With a simple flick of his wrist, the legendary agent keeps the loud-mouthed professor pinned under crushing gravitational pressure. Realizing his point is proven, our boy nonchalantly snaps his fingers. Instantly, the oppressive force field shatters, dropping his opponent like trash onto the cracked stone. The sore loser snaps, clawing at the air and screaming that this must be a cheap trick. If you ask me, he is just mad he got completely outclassed. Watching him throw a wild tantrum only makes him look pathetic. Up in the VIP box, the Academy directors have seen enough. The match is officially over. Down in the stands, the crowd erupts into agitated whispers. No one expected a human to make a top instructor look like an amateur. Among the spectators, the top blonde student stands frozen in disbelief. She knows high-level spirit arts when she sees them, but this breaks every law of their world. How can an inferior species wield divine authority? That should be impossible. Desperate to save face, the disgraced professor grabs our boy by the collar, demanding answers. Jin calmly asks him to relax. But as the crowd watches on, one question echoes in everyone's mind. What kind of monster is this man? Fast forward 1 week later across the Academy grounds. The dust has settled, but his problems are only just beginning. Inside the grand auditorium, the Academy's brutal reality is laid out without hesitation. This institution is not merely educating kids. They are forging a frontline army to fight the eroders. Anyone who fails to keep up will be forcibly expelled on the spot. Failure means immediate ruin. The head instructor promises that successful graduates will earn a coveted position within the Holy Knights. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Rank and survival here rely entirely on personal merit. Soft weaklings will not survive their first term. High on the VIP balcony, upperclassmen scan the massive crowd like predators. The lion beastman casually greets Laius, teasing that she only showed up to scout wealthy nobles for political favors. But that is when everything changes. The beastman's smug look disappears as his eyes land on the faculty section. A human sits casually right among the high-ranking instructors. Laius delivers the harsh truth. The human is no student. Jin Shido is their new instructor. The lion guy tries to cope, dismissing our boy as an inferior species unworthy of respect. Laius pretends to agree, yet her icy gaze betrays her rising anxiety. Down below, Jin senses their staring and looks directly back at the balcony. If you ask me, these nobles have no idea what is coming. Jin realizes. Exploring this massive academy will take considerable time, but the relentless, condescending stares from the audience are already getting on his nerves. Standing out like a sore thumb will only draw dangerous suspicion. To carry out his true investigation, our boy knows he must first earn unconditional respect and shatter their foolish belief in human inferiority. Inside the grand lecture hall, the senior instructor opens today's spirit arts lesson with a sharp warning. He tells the class to stay vigilant so they are not outpaced by incoming freshmen, though he arrogantly adds that the elite nobles probably do not need to worry. That is when the instructor scans the massive auditorium and spots a glaring problem. The vast majority of the seats are completely empty. Why is attendance so embarrassingly low today? Behind the scenes, the sly, long-nosed lecturer secretly gloats with satisfaction. He personally orchestrated this empty hall by spreading rumors that an inferior human was taking over the lesson, engineering a full-scale student boycott. Feigning total innocence, the old wolf steps aside and hands the podium over to Jin Shido, inviting him to introduce himself. If these arrogant instructors think a cold shoulder will rattle our boy, they are in for a rude awakening. Jin Shido steps up to the podium and introduces himself with terrifying composure. He calmly announces that he will be instructing them in the fundamentals of spirit arts for now. Down in the gallery, the remaining students stare him down with burning hostility. The arrogant lion beastman interrupts, sneering and asking if an inferior human is truly qualified to teach elite nobles. Jin simply smiles, telling the class it is for them to judge. If they find his knowledge worthless, they can walk out right now. Talk about cold disrespect. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the lecture hall turns dead silent. Jin's gaze hardens as a brilliant sphere of raw spirit energy flares around his hand. He lays down one non-negotiable rule. Never turn this divine strength against fellow mortals. That is a line no one should cross. See, spirit arts possess the unique authority to neutralize an eritor's extraordinary regeneration. But against mortal flesh, that inhibition effect fails, inflicting self-destructive damage on the caster instead. Clenching his glowing fist with deadly seriousness, the veteran agent reminds them this force was engineered for one purpose: slaughtering monsters. Up in the stands, Lias breaks into a cold sweat as the instructor's intense aura washes over the auditorium. She can feel the undeniable truth behind his grave warning. Will these arrogant aristocrats actually listen? Probably not. The arrogant beastman scoffs from his seat, mocking the idea that spirit power should ever be restrained. Down in the gallery, the auditorium bursts into snickers as the noble students sneer, accusing Jin of being terrified of superior species. Talk about a crazy level of disrespect. Unfazed by their childish taunts, the former top agent turns the disrespect right back on them. He calmly stares down the gallery and lays his career on the line, daring the loudmouth to strike him. If you can manage to even land a scratch, I'll promise to never show my face here again. Can he really back up this gamble? Taking the bait without hesitation, the smug noble gathers a violent, crackling torrent of lethal energy. Behind the podium, the sly old lecturer panics as the reckless student unleashes his ultimate attack directly across the hall. He cares nothing for collateral damage. The blinding beam tears across the auditorium and detonates in a massive explosion right on top of the stage. Heavy shockwaves and smoke engulf the front row. That should have solved their problem. Instead, everyone holds their breath. The arrogant noble's smug grin vanishes in a fraction of a second. Before anyone can react, the veteran agent redirects the attack with terrifying speed. The counterstrike grazes the student's head and shatters the solid stone wall behind him. Behind a glowing hexagonal barrier, Jin steps through the lingering smoke completely untouched. He coldly warns the stunned class that judging others by appearance is a fatal mistake. If he wanted to kill them, they would already be dead. Up in the gallery, the lion beastman freezes in total disbelief. Panic sweeps through the crowd of elite nobles as they stare at the cratered wall. If strength is their only metric for superiority, who is inferior now? Personally, I love watching these aristocrats get put in their place. Flashing a dark, confident smile, Jin gathers raw spirit energy in his palm and lays down the law. From this day forward, they will call him teacher. He has won. Standing at the podium, Jin Shido locks his cold gaze onto the room and demands an immediate explanation for their reckless attack. Answer me. If I were sitting in that classroom, I would be shaking in my boots too. The cocky wolf kid stammers under the crushing pressure, frantically attempting to defend his pride. He channels divine energy straight into his palm to demonstrate standard academy magic theory. Isn't that the basics? That sounds simple enough, but it is completely wrong. Our boy smirks at the foolish answer and flares a radiant mana aura from his palm. He proves that spirits never respond to imagination alone, but only activate once hit by a specific wavelength. To back up his lesson, the ancient agent demonstrates the 4 primary elemental frequencies right before their eyes. He effortlessly ignites a roaring flame, discharges lethal lightning, channels restoration energy, and constructs a razor-sharp ice crystal with a casual flick of his wrist. The noble elites gape in utter shock as the demonstration rapidly escalates. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. As Jin Shido casually manipulates gravity, flashes blinding light, and condenses crushing air pressure to paralyze the room, he tops off his absurd demonstration by constructing a shimmering spatial barrier right in front of them. The beastman student completely loses his composure. He screams in utter disbelief, that a substitute teacher can command 8 distinct spirit arts at once. Our boy casually reminds the room that precise visualization is key to mastering these fundamentals. He flashes a cold, confident smirk before crossing his arms across his chest. Shall we begin the lesson? After class, the ancient general strides through the main corridors to begin his secret investigation. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Excited students swarm every hallway to gossip about his terrifying magic display, completely ruining his chances of a quiet search. He realizes his only option is to infiltrate high-security zones off-limits to normal students. But as he scans the crowded corridor, a sharp blonde noblewoman locks her gaze onto him. If I had elites staring at me like that, I'd watch my back. That should have solved his navigation problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. As he attempts to slip past her, the blonde noble steps directly into his path and demands to know who he really is. The blonde noble reluctantly admits he is far from normal after witnessing 8 master-level spirit arts in person. She crosses her arms in utter frustration and demands to know how a substitute teacher could possess such staggering power. Our boy casually insists that anyone can replicate his spirit arts by isolating proper mana wavelengths. She scoffs at his ridiculous claim while stunned students gossip in the corridor. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. To avoid the rising commotion, the elite student leads him away toward a quiet private corridor. If you ask me, getting dragged off by high nobility is a recipe for trouble. She stops abruptly and demands real answers. Jin Shido gives her the literal truth, explaining he spent 100 million years slumbering inside a sealed pod. She isn't buying it. She dismisses his claim as a joke and demands to know his life before that sleep. The ancient agent reveals he served as a government operative who bled for his country against lethal villains. A solemn vision of his lost tactical comrades flashes through his mind. His deepest secrets remain completely hidden from this era. A tactical memory of war flashes through his mind. Back when he fought alongside elite soldiers, the little general relied on firearms and squad tactics to battle lethal monsters. If you ask me, he clearly misses those simpler times. He admits his ultimate mission ended in total failure. Believing he could save the world alone, he watched society crumble as terrifying corruptors wiped out civilization. That painful loss forced him into 100 million years of deep slumber. The skeptical blonde noble struggles to digest his wild backstory, but she continues walking down the quiet hallway anyway. She claims she is merely fulfilling her duty as his academy guide. Is she leading him into a trap? She pushes open a heavy wooden door, revealing a dusty, neglected storage room full of old teaching materials. Our boy steps across the threshold alongside his noble guide, cautiously inspecting every corner of the abandoned chamber. He scans rows of forgotten manuscripts and strange relics left behind by past instructors. Suddenly, his eyes lock onto a peculiar carved owl statue perched high on a dark bookshelf, hinting that this room hides far more than junk. Jin Shido zeroes his sharp gaze onto the room's subtle anomalies. The blonde noble pulls out secret academy blueprints, pointing directly to an unnatural blank space hidden behind the wall. Could this forgotten corner be hiding an illegal facility? Connecting her blueprint with his tactical instincts, our boy reaches up and twists the wooden owl statue. A heavy rumble echoes through the chamber as the entire bookshelf shifts aside, revealing a pitch-black secret staircase plunging deep into the facility below. The hidden entrance gates open before them. Baffled by how effortlessly he solved the mechanism, the elite student gapes at him and demands to know how he spotted it. He calmly explains that while every shelf was coated in heavy dust, the owl ornament was unnaturally spotless from recent use. Trusting his combat instincts, the former operative commands her to wait outside before striding straight into the shadow alone. Don't underestimate me. But that is when everything changes. She refuses to sit out, and honestly, I respect the stubborn attitude. Warning that dangerous monsters known as eridors lurk below, she boasts top academy ranks and combat strength matching her brother. Jin Shido flashes a cold, confident smirk and accepts her offer, stepping onto the dark staircase together. Channeling light mana into a bright glowing orb, our boy illuminates the deep subterranean passage. Is walking straight into an underground trap really a smart tactical move? As they descend deeper into the dark, the elite student presses him for tactical intelligence, asking if he has already identified any suspicious faculty members inside the academy. He glances back with an amused smile, acknowledging her relentless curiosity. The former operative names Mr. Rudman as his primary target. C. Jin observed the elder beastman constantly zoning out when alone, a classic tactical indicator of someone forced to act against their original intent while maintaining extreme vigilance. She brings up Mr. Gita as another potential suspect, but the little general cleanly refutes her theory. He explains that Gita wears his panicked emotions openly on his face, proving he lacks the composure to conceal a sinister agenda. Their dark descent finally reaches the bottom. Stepping past the threshold, the duo gazes into a massive ruined hall, blanketed in ancient dust and silence. The hidden underground facility sprawls before them, concealing deadly secrets in the dark. The elite student gapes in disbelief at the massive cavern hidden directly beneath the school grounds. But Jin Shido suddenly freezes in his tracks. He recognizes the heavy steel vault door towering at the end of the hall. It is a secret research facility left behind by Kagura from his past. Jin Shido stands before a massive sealed vault hidden deep beneath the academy. Reinforced with ancient nanomachines, this giant barrier marks one of Kagura's forgotten research institutes. The blonde girl beside our boy can barely comprehend that such a sprawling facility lies hidden right under their feet. She anxiously asks if getting inside is even possible. The former elite agent explains that opening an underground facility normally demands a unique access key. If you ask me, dealing with forgotten tech is never easy. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. See, back in Kodama village, Hakama inherited a key to control their local ruins. Jin realizes someone in this city must hold a similar key to command this lab. If that's true, whoever holds that pass is deliberately driving this country into complete destruction. Instead of hunting down the missing keyholder, our legendary general takes matters into his own hands. He presses his gloved palm flat against the metallic barrier. Cyan light surges across the surface as the system confirms highest clearance for Jin. The heavy vault doors grind open with a deafening mechanical crash, revealing the dark abyss within. Jin warns that their true enemy is lurking in the shadows, but as they step inside, their blood runs cold. Imprisoned behind giant steel bars rests a terrifying monster. Except their problems are only just beginning. The blonde academy girl can barely process the secret laboratory hidden beneath her school. She nervously asks how it unlocked the vault without a key, only for our boy to casually claim ancient humans have special access. That leaves her wondering if this guy truly survived from 100 million years ago. As they venture deeper into the holding cells, something catches Jin's attention. The vicious corruptors aren't clawing at their bars or roaring in rage. Instead, these terrifying monsters remain unnervingly docile, locked away without putting up any fight at all. He recalls the beast captured by the bandits acting the exact same way. But standing before a colossal, multi-eyed behemoth towering over him, a far darker question emerges. How on earth did anyone secretly transport a monster of this terrifying scale into the facility? The blonde girl realizes her brother's suspicions about the academy were spot on. She suggests hiding in the shadows to wait out the mastermind behind this lab. Sounds like a solid tactical plan, right? Not exactly. Jin immediately shuts her down with a cold refusal. Our boy demands an immediate purge, insisting they lock down the academy and exterminate every editor on the spot. The shocked noble girl protests. You want to let the mastermind escape? She warns that if these monsters break loose, innocent students will pay the ultimate price. Jin reminds the blonde noble girl that protecting innocent students takes priority over hunting down the mastermind, just as her brother would demand. He instructs her to contact Argus and lock down the entire academy. Meanwhile, our boy decides to investigate this ancient research lab further. She nods in agreement and hurries back upstairs to execute the lockdown order. Left alone in the dark, our little general marches deeper into the subterranean facility. Passing beneath a giant astronomical clock, his seasoned battle instincts warn him that a terrible catastrophe is brewing beneath their feet. The mechanical clock ticks away rhythmically in the oppressive silence. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. Meanwhile, inside the academy corridors, the wolf-eared instructor seethes with overwhelming humiliation. Whispering students laugh right behind his back about how the new human teacher beat him to a pulp. If you ask me, the sore loser brought that beatdown entirely on himself. He stubbornly refuses to accept that an inferior species can wield 8 spirit arts without cheating. The angry old teacher throws a petty tantrum, stomping his feet while swearing to expose the newcomer. He vows to reclaim his ruined reputation at any cost. But before he can take another step, a pair of heavy boots steps in front of him as a mysterious person calls out to Mr. Gita. The academy headmaster steps in to shut down the disgraced wolf instructor's pathetic breakdown, ordering him to stop his embarrassing public tantrums immediately. She casually dismisses his ruined pride as a strange hobby. Personally, I think he got off easy. Before walking away, she asks if he has seen Mr. Rudman around campus. Gita realizes the missing staff member has been nowhere to be seen since the entrance ceremony wrapped up. The headmaster sighs in deep frustration. She urgently needed his help to organize the new student schedule. Suddenly, the headmaster senses an unnatural shift in the air and glances out the window. High above the academy spires, a colossal cloud of dark purple energy crackles violently across the sunset sky. A catastrophic storm is gathering fast. Meanwhile, Miss Olton sprints up the hidden subterranean staircase at full speed. Bursting through the secret doorway back into the academy, she clutches her aching chest while gasping for air. Time is running out fast. Can she reach her brother in time? She mutters to herself that she must report the secret underground facility to her brother immediately. That is when a menacing voice echoes from the darkness. "What are you going to report?" Her blood freezes as she turns around. Standing right before her in the shadows is the missing teacher, Mr. Rudman, wearing a sinister, twisted smile, except her problems are only just beginning. Deep inside the subterranean facility, heavy metallic doors swing open to reveal a hidden chamber bathed in a violent red light. Our boy steps across the threshold, staring in pure shock at the terrifying sight waiting for him inside. Suspended at the center of the lab rests a colossal biological core, pulsating rhythmically like a giant living heart wired into ancient control monitors. Did the legendary scientists of Kagura truly build a monster like this right under the school? Seeking immediate answers, our little general marches up to the terminal and begins entering master override commands. The mechanical desk pops open, exposing a glowing blue data cube and a syringe filled with concentrated green nanomachines. Jin grabs the message cube, desperate for vital tactical clues to explain the corruptive disaster currently unfolding across the academy. He feeds his energy directly into the device, praying his old comrades left behind a turn to save humanity. A blue hologram of Argus materializes before him, casually sipping coffee as if 100 million years were nothing. The scientist greets Jin, explaining that this facility was built to house his most advanced research project. He reveals that part of that extraordinary device's ultimate power now rests sealed inside that nanomachine injector. Argus's hologram drops a massive tactical revelation, boasting of his own genius before dropping the sudden truth about the biological machine. It isn't a containment unit, it is an ancient teleportation device. Jin freezes in utter shock as the final piece of this sinister mystery falls into place. Those docile monsters weren't captured and dragged under the school by hand. How else could a colossal beast enter completely undetected? The mastermind is actively warping gargantuan eroders directly into subterranean cells. As the biological core throbs like a giant heart, a terrible realization dawns on our legendary agent, except his problems are only just beginning. Inside the subterranean containment facility, imprisoned corruptors thrash against their cages, while an ancient astronomical clock ticks ominously overhead. Is this mechanical countdown tied directly to the core below? Every single second brings them closer to total catastrophe. Deep beneath the surface, our boy Jin Shidus stands frozen before a massive glowing red organ wired into industrial machinery. The terminal readout confirms his absolute worst suspicion. This biological nightmare is actually an ancient teleportation device. See, spatial transport was once a legendary technology from 100 million years ago built to connect two distant locations instantly. That means the sudden corruptor raids devastating the royal capital weren't random breaches at all. The enemy has been actively warping monster forces directly into human territory. Examining Finn Argus's holographic record, the former elite agent spots a disturbing discrepancy. The scientist's actual teleportation pod was a sleek, pristine glass chamber. So if that clean pod was the real machine, then what is this grotesque, living mass pulsating right in front of him? That should have given him a moment to process the danger. Instead, a heavy metallic lock clicks through the dark facility as the clock hands snap into perfect alignment. The hidden countdown has officially hit 0. Without warning, the subterranean core erupts into a blinding flare of red light. Jin Shidu instinctively throws up a gloved hand to shield his eyes as intense heat and energy wash over the containment chamber. Behind the heavy iron bars, the trapped corruptor begins to hum violently. Glowing energy wraps around its body as its solid form starts dissolving into raw spatial light right before his eyes. That should have given him a moment to react. Instead, the monstrous beast vanishes completely through the teleportation grid. A terrifying pillar of crimson light blasts directly upward, punching straight through the facility's reinforced ceiling toward the surface world. Above ground, an elven warrior frantically sprints over to report the crisis. But Argus already sees the sky tearing open. A colossal red beam pierces the clouds, raining down an army of monsters directly onto the capital. Massive explosions tear through the city streets. This is an absolute nightmare. At that same time inside the manor, Lady Ulton suddenly freezes, sensing the catastrophic shockwave. Seeing her stiffen, the veteran lord casually asks why she is making such a grim face. I swear, this guy is totally oblivious. He has no clue the capital is already burning. Lady Ulton powers up her magic and corners the beast lord, demanding to know if he is in cahoots with the invasion. The traitorous noble casually admits he knew about her investigation all along, mocking her because she is already far too late to stop it. He sinisterly proclaims that today marks the grand execution. The enemy moved up their attack schedule solely because their secret operations were threatened. Is anyone really surprised? They recognize that a certain elite agent posed an immediate threat to their entire operation. Down in the underground facility, our boy Jin Shido sprints full speed through the dark metallic corridors. Above ground, the corrupt lord points straight at the hidden passage, fully intending to head down and crush the intruder before he can ruin everything. Lady Ulton readies her combat stance and demands if he honestly believes he can defeat her in battle. In response, a sinister purple aura explodes around the traitor as he sneers with total confidence. He dramatically shouts that he has acquired invincible power to destroy them all. I have to admit, his villain speech is top tier. But right behind his back, a brave student sneaks up carrying a massive clay pot overhead. Talk about bad timing. Before the traitorous old lord can unleash his invincible aura, a massive clay pot shatters directly over his head. He drops face down on the floor, completely knocked out cold. Wiping sweat from her forehead, the brave student proudly claims total victory over the traitor. Lady Ulton demands to know why students are intruding on a dangerous crime scene. The beast girl frantically explains that thick smoke is billowing across the capital outside. They desperately need Jin Shido's help, having tracked him straight to this secret room after a classmate spotted him entering. Her bunny-eared classmate panics out loud, terrified that they just assaulted an actual teacher. But the blunt beast girl casually devises a cold-blooded cover-up, pointing directly at the elf warrior and deciding to blame the entire beatdown on her. Can you really blame her for improvising? Before anyone can argue, heavy metallic footsteps echo violently from the stone passage below as someone sprints up the stairs at top speed. Our boy Jin Shido bursts through the secret doorway, catching his breath as he stares in complete bewilderment at the knocked-out lord. The beast girl rushes over and grabs his sleeve to warn him about the burning capital, but our hero grimly cuts her off. He already knows the nightmare taking place outside. Jin Shidu's face turns grim as the terrible truth hits him. Every single caged beast inside the subterranean laboratory has completely vanished, meaning the ancient teleportation system didn't just activate. It successfully delivered a full-scale monster invasion directly to their doorstep. Sprinting out onto the high balcony, our hero and the students look down at pure chaos. Thick smoke billows into the sky, while fiery explosions tear through the streets of the royal capital below. The entire city is burning. Down on the ground, panic consumes the innocent civilians. Ferocious corruptors overrun the cobbled streets, tearing down anyone in sight while winged beasts swoop down to snatch helpless victims straight into the sky. Is there anywhere safe left to hide? A massive clawed foot smashes through stone buildings as a colossal behemoth looms high over the horizon. This monstrous tentacled titan roars with fury, unleashing a wave of destruction over the royal capital. I definitely wouldn't want to face that giant nightmare. Watching the carnage unfold, Jinshido grits his teeth in bitter regret, bitterly admitting, "I made the wrong choice." He should have smashed that ancient biological device instantly. Before anyone can move, a colossal shockwave erupts from the beast. The colossal monster roars as destructive energy gathers inside its massive jaw, targeting a fatal blast straight at the royal castle. Watching the horizon, the panicked academy students instantly realize that the entire royal family will be incinerated if that attack lands. Taking full responsibility for the breach, Jinshido pulls out a glowing green syringe filled with concentrated nanomachines. He slams the needle directly into his forearm. This intense power-up grants him a portable version of the ancient spatial teleportation device, limited to a single jump per day. Can anyone truly intercept a blast of this magnitude? As the monstrous energy beam tears across the sky, a blinding flash of light erupts beside the terrified students. Our boy vanishes from the balcony in the blink of an eye, warping high into the air directly in front of the main castle tower. The former elite agent intercepts the incoming devastation. He extends a glowing hexagonal barrier to block the fiery beam head-on. Honestly, I love seeing him step up. Chaos erupts across the royal capital as monstrous corruptors tear through the streets, crushing buildings and sending terrified citizens fleeing for their lives. A panicked messenger sprints down the hallway and slams open the doors to headquarters. She desperately warns that a massive beast has breached the outer defenses. Guildmaster Hardin Ganslot can only gaze out the window with grave eyes. He already knows the terrifying truth. The silver-haired leader turns back with a grim face, admitting there is nothing left for them to do. Every warrior capable of holding a blade has already been mobilized to defend the burning city. Even the Holy Knights are deploying every soldier to shield fleeing families. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. That should have held the line. Instead, it reveals a brutal reality. Half of the elite knights are away on a distant assignment, making this attack a calculated ambush. Panic explodes as a giant corruptor unleashes a lethal beam of energy directly at the royal palace. Is this the end? Hardin squeezes his eyes shut, preparing for absolute annihilation, but his shocked aide screams for him to look outside. I gotta respect the hero entry. Our boy Jin warps straight into midair, throwing up a glowing hexagonal shield that stops the massive beam cold. He's from Kodama Village. The headquarters aide recognizes our boy instantly, her eyes widening as sudden hope flares amidst the chaos. And honestly, who can blame her? But outside, there is zero time for celebration. The monstrous titan still looms over the royal capital, radiating deadly energy across the burning skyline. Landing on the stone wall with perfect balance, Jin doesn't waste a single breath playing defense. He immediately focuses radiant aura around his body, drops into a heavy combat stance, and unleashes a massive energy beam straight at the advancing giant. The blinding strike detonates right against the Titan's shoulder, blasting off armor in a huge shockwave. But as the smoke clears, Jin locks eyes with the beast. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. The monster is only enraged. This monstrosity is simply too huge to destroy with a basic long-range blast. To make matters worse, warp teleporting across the city drained far more energy than expected. Jin realizes this fight won't go as smoothly as usual. Is his remaining power really enough to bring down a walking mountain? In that case, I guess I'll get some actual exercise for a change. Unsheathing a brilliant blade forged of solid light energy, our silver-haired weapon takes a sharp stance and unleashes a lethal crescent swing that carves straight through the atmosphere. The blinding light blade carves straight into the Titan's flesh, stalling its brutal rampage. Our silver-haired warrior bounds across the rooftops to reposition. He knows a single slash will not kill a regenerating Titan. Still, buying precious time is everything right now. Focus. Closing his eyes for a brief moment, the relic hero channels his inner nanomachines. He manipulates gravity to negate his own weight completely. In an instant, his body glides through the air like a shadow. His boot lightly taps a roof tile before launching back into the sky. By altering atmospheric pressure, he generates powerful wind currents to rocket forward at terrifying speed. Can simple physics beat absolute brute force? Honestly, I love watching him work. Meanwhile, down on the blood-soaked sea streets, a royal guard is pinned under a ferocious beastly corruptor. Just as razor claws press into his throat, a sudden fireball blasts straight into the monster's face. "We're here to help!" Two Beastkin students from Harnisk Academy step up to defend the capital. The relieved soldier picks up his spear, thanking them for their bravery. "These kids aren't backing down from a fight. We just gotta pull through." But as more monstrous corruptors surround them from above and below, dread settles in. They are completely cornered, and their fight for survival has only just begun. Before the vicious claws can tear into the cornered beastkin, a silver blur shatters the air. Jin hard lands on the cobblestones and unleashes a violent horizontal arc with his light blade, cleanly slicing both massive corruptors in half before they can even react. The Academy students and the Royal Guard gape in utter shock as monster parts rain around them. Is that one of the lesser race? They stutter in disbelief. Can a mere human possess this kind of insane combat power? You love seeing their snobbery vanish. Our boy doesn't waste a second taking a victory lap. He immediately sprints down the main thoroughfare toward the giant behemoth, planning to close the gap before it finishes regenerating. Sensing his approach, the Titan roars, launching twin arcs of explosive energy straight down the street. Danger instincts flare. Jin warps skyward as the energy beams obliterate the pavement right where he stood. Mid-air, the relic hero quickly analyzes the situation. Aside from those long-range artillery strikes, the giant Titan is too slow to touch him. Before the behemoth can lock onto the royal castle again, Jin rockets forward. He flashes through the alleyways, severing stray corruptors mid-charge to shield fleeing civilians. Pushing his nanomachines past their safety limit, he surges forward with single-minded focus. He has to be even faster. Jin locks his eyes on the monstrous Titan, igniting his nanomachines to propel his body forward at terrifying speeds. Pushing far past normal physical limits, our silver-haired warrior rockets across the shattered cobblestones, closing the distance in a fraction of a second. He isn't playing defense anymore. Gliding effortlessly around the giant Titan, the relic hero delivers swift crescent slashes that carve right through its dense armor. The colossal behemoth recoils in sudden shock as light energy severs its hide. Can a walking mountain really be forced backward by one man? Up on the fortress walls, the holy knights and academy students gape in absolute disbelief at the battlefield below. Nobody expected a supposed low-class warrior to suppress a calamity-class threat single-handedly. You gotta love seeing snobbish elites completely lose their composure. Warping onto the rooftops, Jin launches a blinding flurry of orbital light slashes across the Titan's massive legs and torso. Glowing energy blades cut through the beast's armor, preventing its lower body from moving. Without giving it a second to recover, he extends the barrage to its chest and jaw. Intersecting slashes tear into the creature's core, locking the Titan in place. This is tactical precision executed at extreme velocity. Hovering high in the sky, our silver-haired hero wraps the behemoth inside a full grid of razor-sharp light ribbons. The Titan thrashes violently against the glowing web, trapped in mid-air as energy burns into its flesh. Jin dives headfirst to deliver the execution strike. This is the end. Plunging straight down from the high clouds, our silver-haired warrior drives his glowing light blade directly into the monster's skull. The crushing blow impales the trapped behemoth, channeling a sky-piercing beam of radiant energy clean through its massive torso. An enormous light explosion detonates across the royal fortress walls, completely obliterating the giant calamity in one final shockwave. A colossal explosion of light erupts over the royal capital, shaking the very foundations of the inner keep. Below the wall, terrified beastfolk onlookers stumble as the shockwave violently rattles the fortress corridors. What kind of power was that? Jin Shido touches down gracefully as the giant corruptor turns into ash right behind him. One decisive blow erased an enemy that nearly wiped out the capital. The surrounding witnesses can only stare, wondering who this unknown legend truly is. 3 days pass after the battle. The royal capital begins its recovery, with citizens and soldiers working side by side to repair the shattered buildings. Watching from a window upstairs, our silver-haired powerhouse takes in the quiet scene. If you ask me, he earned this rest. He stretches lazily after a long sleep, glad that the city avoided catastrophic destruction. That should have solved the problem cleanly. Instead, the defensive unit had to absorb the secondary impact, keeping civilian losses remarkably light. While the knights held the outer line against minor monsters, the post-battle cleanup moved remarkably fast. However, the crisis is far from over. The academy is instantly closed off by heavily armed guards, launching an emergency investigation into treason. Lord Rudman, identified as the primary culprit behind the monster breach, is bound in heavy iron manacles. The academy director and complicit instructors are rounded up right behind him. They are marched off to the royal castle dungeons for interrogation, but their secrets run deep. Lying back on his bed, Jin chuckles at his bizarre situation. He managed to work for exactly one single day before the academy shut down completely. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. The monster raid exposed a critical flaw in his fighting style that he cannot afford to ignore. When enemies cluster together, his wide-area strikes obliterate them easily. But when monsters spread out across a wide area, his current skills leave dangerous blind spots. To protect the kingdom, our powerhouse needs far greater destructive reach. Can he forge an even deadlier art? Holding a glowing magic cube, his resolve hardens. A sharp knock suddenly interrupts his thoughts. Jin steps forward and pulls open the door, finding a surprising visitor waiting in the hallway. If you ask me, she looks ready for a high-class palace ball. The blonde noble student bows with deep elegance, greeting her teacher with total reverence. Our boy steps back, completely caught off guard. Wasn't the entire academy put under strict military lockdown? She quickly clarifies that her influential older brother requested an urgent meeting. He wants to express his deep gratitude for saving the royal capital and discuss a vital matter in private. She proudly declares that sending a simple servant for a legendary hero would be disrespectful to the Ulton family name. Jin raises an eyebrow, bluntly asking if she finally abandoned her arrogant stance toward beastfolk. To his surprise, the proud noble girl smiles, admitting she truly reflected on her past mistakes. She puts on a grand theatrical performance, claiming she now respects everyone and wishes to stay by Jin Shido's side for discipline and guidance. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. The moment the young beastfolk girl casually strolls into the room looking for fun, the noble's arrogant disdain flares right back up behind her fan. Our powerhouse sees straight through her fake reflection. Leaving the academy grounds behind, the group moves to Argus Mansion, where a long line of estate servants greets their arrival with formal bows. The head butler wastes no time, immediately assigning the young blue-haired siblings to serve as their personal escorts. As they walk through the grand corridors, Jin checks if the kids suffered any injuries during the recent citywide monster raid. The siblings happily assure him they were completely safe, recalling how the estate maids and butlers deployed high-tier barrier magic and blades to protect them. Jin is glad to hear they were protected, but when he asks who spread word of his achievements, the noble girl triumphantly snaps her fan shut. She proudly declares that spreading her master's mighty deeds is her natural duty as his disciple. Naturally, our boy never agreed to take an apprentice. Without missing a beat, she turns to the young beastfolk staff, commanding them to strictly follow Jin's legendary example. Can this proud noble girl truly earn a spot under his command, or will her arrogance get in the way? Walking down the grand hallway, the young servant boy whispers that Lady Melia used to be incredibly strict with them. Lately, her demeanor completely shifted into something far gentler. Our silver-haired hero just sighs, thoroughly confused by her mood swings. Halting before a set of massive gilded doors, the maid steps forward and knocks politely. She clearly announces that Master Jin has arrived. A commanding voice calls out from within, bidding them to enter without any delay. Stepping into the private chamber, Jin is immediately locked under the intense glare of a battle-scared wolf beastfolk. Standing beside him is the blonde noble knight. What kind of meeting is this? The host breaks the silence, warmly inviting the hero to take a seat. As our boy settles onto the comfortable couch, The noble knight offers a polite apology for summoning him on short notice. He formally introduces the imposing warrior sitting across the table. This scarred veteran is Lord Harden Ganslot, leader of the Capital Guild. Harden reaches across the wooden table with a firm handshake, meeting Jin's calm gaze. He admits he personally witnessed our powerhouse's terrifying display of force during the monster invasion. Raw power like that cannot be ignored. Thinking back to the giant corruptor that threatened to erase the capital, the guildmaster admits the kingdom narrowly avoided total extinction. Without hesitation, the veteran warrior bows his head deeply in gratitude. I can respect a proud leader who bows to real strength. Jin casually deflects the praise, pointing out that he only eliminated the giant monster, while the Holy Knights handled the chaotic aftermath. If anyone deserves credit, it is the city's defenders. Watching the silver-haired powerhouse step back from glory, the guildmaster marvels at his total lack of greed. His modesty surprises everyone. When our boy asks if expressing thanks was the sole reason for this meeting, the wolf veteran reveals the real motive behind the summons. The royal family itself has requested a private audience with the hero. But before escorting him to the palace, the guildmaster insists on settling one crucial concern. Harden locks eyes with him, bluntly asking who Jin Shido really is. See, the guild operates an elite intelligence network with agents stationed on every corner of the realm. Nothing escapes their ears. Yet when they launched a deep background investigation into the silver-haired powerhouse, they hit a total wall. His past is a ghost. The noble knight presses the interrogation, declaring that there will be no playing dumb. Where does this mysterious warrior originate from, and what is his true motive for entering the royal capital? As Milia and the young servants watch in tense silence, our hero locks eyes with his interrogators without flinching. With tension thick in the room, the knight corners Jin Shido with a sharp glare, demanding to know his true purpose for entering the country. Our boy just scratches his head lazily. He nonchalantly claims he kept quiet only because he assumed nobody would ever take the actual truth seriously. The knight promises to believe whatever Jin reveals. Sounds simple, right? Jin drops his relaxed attitude, locks eyes with his interrogator, and unleashes the ultimate bomb. He plainly states, "I'm a human who lived 100 million years ago." The knight connects the dots to the taboo of Kodama village and the sleeper locked inside the sealed door. I would be sweating bullets too if a living legend sat right across from me. Lord Harden speaks up next, admitting that despite how absurd it sounds, he fully believes Jin's words. Milia steps in to support Jin, recalling how he uncovered an ancient vault hidden deep beneath the academy that was never meant to be opened. She smoothly fans herself while reminding her brother that everyone in the room witnessed Jin's incredible power firsthand. Her brother stares in complete disbelief at her sudden change of heart. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. Her enthusiastic defense leaves him thoroughly bewildered, wondering why his own sister is suddenly fiercely loyal to this ancient powerhouse. Jin reveals he was buried deep beneath this land for millions of years. The reason I headed for the royal capital was because I wanted to gather information about this era, our boy explains coldly. The Beastman Lord leans forward, demanding details. What targets could an ancient powerhouse possibly pursue? Jin bluntly answers he came looking for two specific answers. First on his list are the monsters ravaging the realm. He reveals corruptors existed back in his ancient era, sending a wave of dread through the room. Jin's icy blue eye locks onto his hosts. There's no way they should have survived into this era. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. Lord Harden presses for the reason behind his certainty. The answer comes down to spirit energy. 100 million years ago, ancient human civilization built massive high-tech towers to disperse spirits across the entire globe. I honestly wouldn't want to argue with someone who lived through that tech boom. Giant energy beams erupted into the atmosphere, wrapping the planet in a spiritual barrier. Corruptors thrive exclusively in toxic slime and waste. Because spirit power purifies that pollution completely, those foul beasts ought to have starved into total extinction. So why are corruptors still rampaging across the land today? Jin admits he does not have all the answers yet. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. As our boy slowly reaches inside his coat, tension in the room spikes to a boiling point. Instead of pulling a hidden blade, Jin activates a glowing holographic cube containing lost ancient technology. He reveals alarming news. These monsters aren't just surviving, they are actively evolving. Lord Hardin stares at the floating interface in total shock, unable to comprehend tech far beyond this primitive era. Our boy confirms his trek to the royal capital served a dual purpose. He needed to uncover historical records on modern warfare against the Horde, while hunting down lost research facilities hidden across the continent. When questioned further, Jin confirms one of those ancient vaults was built by his own comrade directly beneath the capital. That massive vault was just the beginning. The 100-million-year-old veteran plans to scour the globe for every remaining facility. Naturally, he keeps quiet about using those ancient strongholds to regain his absolute peak power. Jin leans forward, locking eyes with every noble in the room. His cold gaze cuts through the heavy atmosphere as he delivers his absolute mandate: total extermination of the corruptor race. The room plunges into dead silence. Honestly, I wouldn't dare doubt a guy with that look. Lord Hardin breaks the quiet, admitting it sounds like a wild myth. Yet the knight smiles warmly, agreeing to trust him since they fight against the same threat. He warns the ancient warrior to keep his true origin secret, lest people assume he lost his mind. Jin just smirks calmly. Lord Hardin points out that no secret enemy plotting harm would ever risk their life defending the castle. That rock-solid logic convinces the knight to stand with Jin completely. But right before they can plan their next move, a sharp knock at the door shatters the heavy room's silence. A maid steps inside to announce that their official appointment is drawing near. The knight immediately stands up and urges everyone to get ready while Jin looks completely bewildered as the staff scrambles around him. Is he ready for royalty? Shortly after, a luxury carriage wheels rapidly through the capital city under heavy armed escort. The Grand Royal Palace looms ahead. It stands tall against the bright blue sky as the ultimate seat of royal power in this realm. Inside the coach, Jin finds himself forced into a lavish ceremonial outfit. He grumbles about needing such a useless noble dress code, but the knight insists the high-class coat suits him perfectly. If he doesn't want the royal drip, I definitely wouldn't mind taking it. The mansion maid and young sisters practically swooned over his sharp new look earlier, even if Jin grumbles that it restricts his battle movements. Lord Hardin sternly explains that meeting the first prince, acting as proxy for the king, demands absolute court formality. Our unbothered legend just sighs. What a massive pain. The grand royal carriage wheels rapidly into the palace grounds under a heavy-armed escort. Jin Shidu stares out the window, quietly hoping this high-stakes invitation won't drag him into even more annoying political drama. Can our unbothered legend survive a court full of scheming nobles? They step into an opulent grand hall flanked by ranks of elite beastmen guards holding heavy spears and sharp swords. The intense security makes it obvious that the royal crown takes zero chances with an unknown warrior entering their seat of power. Inside the majestic throne room, Lord Hardin and the group drop onto the red carpet in full reverence. A cold voice echoes from the dais. It commands them to raise their heads. Jin lifts his gaze, locking eyes with the figure standing high above. First Prince Tails Kuramosia. Looming before them backlit by brilliant stained glass, the acting ruler radiates intense authority. I definitely wouldn't want to challenge a guy with that look. Our boy maintains absolute composure, offering a formal court greeting. Prince Tails steps forward to express official royal gratitude for saving the realm, speaking on behalf of his bedridden father. Heavy tension fills the room. The atmosphere turns icy when the prince patronizingly dismisses Kodama village as a pathetic little backwater. Jin twitches at the arrogant insult. Tails smirks wickedly, dropping his polite facade to confront the legendary hero. Things are about to get ugly. Prince Tails completely drops his polite facade, looking down on them with a malicious smirk. He demands absolute submission, ordering the holy knight to work himself to the bone for his personal sake. This entire royal audience is a trap. Will our legendary hero take this disrespect lying down? Inside the grand throne room, Prince Tails demands absolute submission from everyone present. He orders the holy knight to work himself to the bone, staring down from the marble stairs with arrogant pride. But the blue-haired knight refuses to bend. Silence heavy enough to suffocate fills the entire hall. The wolf-eared elder quickly steps forward to break the escalating tension. He warns the royal prince not to push too hard, reminding him who brought their ally here. If you ask me, this prince is way out of line. The knight makes his own stance clear, flatly refusing to stay in the kingdom long-term. Tails presses further, questioning his temporary work at the academy. The knight offers a cold apology, rejecting the royal command outright. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. The prince's glare turns venomous as his authority is publicly shattered. That is when everything changes. Steel flashes through the hall as armored guards swarm the floor. Armed soldiers completely surround the kneeling group in seconds, trapping them on the red carpet. Tails shouts the order to seize him without hesitation. Panic erupts. The elder gasps in disbelief as sharp blades block every path. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. Tails drops a massive accusation, charging the knight with high treason. He reveals that an ancient sealed vault lies hidden deep beneath the academy, concealing a monster known as an eroder behind heavy doors. Can he really prove such a deadly claim? Tails sinisterly claims our boy opened the ancient vault himself, framing his heroic rescue of the kingdom as nothing more than a staged farce. Is it really that easy to frame a hero? The wolf-eared elder barks back in sheer outrage, flatly condemning the royal prince's ridiculous charge as total nonsense. Razor-sharp steel edges press directly against his throat, yet the blue-haired warrior does not even flinch. Tails strokes his chin with arrogant pride, boasting that he would have happily overlooked these fake crimes if Jin simply agreed to serve him. That should have solved the problem. Instead, it creates a bigger one. The golden-haired knight breaks into a cold sweat as the terrifying reality hits him. Jin only just arrived in the capital on his own personal request, making the treason charge completely impossible. Sounds simple, right? Not exactly. The whole group walked straight into a masterfully planned royal trap. Surrounding the carpet are the commanders of the 3rd and 4th Divisions, fanatical executioners who obey any ruthless order without hesitation. If you ask me, this trial was rigged from the start. If our boy refused to bend, rotting away inside a dark dungeon cell was already locked in. Staring down from the grand marble staircase, the prince reveals his true motivation. A warrior capable of crushing a colossal monster is simply far too dangerous to leave unchecked. Extending a gloved hand with a sinister grin, Tails delivers his final ultimatum: swear your allegiance to me. Surrounded by elite royal guards, Jin stares straight ahead into the ring of lethal steel and calmly speaks up. He flatly questions the prince's absurd demand. What is the point of forcing a verbal vow that carries zero weight the second he leaves? Prince Tails bristles as the bold insolence echoes through the grand hall. Kneeling right beneath drawn spears, our boy exposes the prince's true desperation. A forced oath proves nothing. Jin looks Tails dead in the eye and asks if he is simply satisfying a pathetic urge to dominate others, or concealing a sinister ulterior motive. The royal's face darkens with dark fury. Enraged by such public disrespect, a Horned Division commander slams his heavy weapon toward the hero's neck. He screams at Jin to know his place before royal authority. Honestly, watching these arrogant captains flex on the wrong warrior is pure comedy. He demands to know who Jin thinks he is talking to. Without even flinching, our hero casually reaches up and clamps a gloved hand onto the spear shaft. He locks his grip tight. The massive commander tries to yank his weapon back, but it remains frozen in place. Cold sweat instantly breaks out across his face. Jin plants his boot on the red carpet and rises to his feet. With one effortless pull, he yanks the heavy captain forward and completely off balance. The royal executioners thought they had a helpless prisoner trapped. But that is when everything changes. The massive captain crashes hard onto the red carpet. Staring up through the smoke, the executioner gasps in utter disbelief that Jin actually struck him mid-sentence. Talk about zero respect for villain speeches. Up on the grand stairs, Prince Tails scowls with dark fury, while the Golden Knight clutches his head as the hall descends into complete chaos. The female division commander steps forward, thrusting her hand out to incinerate our hero with high-tier spirit arts. But her magic fizzles out into thin air. Can anyone in this kingdom actually stop this guy? Shock turns to terror as she realizes her inner power completely refuses to activate. Enraged by the public humiliation, Tails screams for every remaining executioner to swarm the carpet at once. Armed guards rush in from every angle. Jin casually catches a lunging spear, then drives a brutal front kick directly into the captain's stomach, blasting him across the marble floor. Claiming the captured weapon, Jin spins the steel shaft with effortless precision. He swings a single devastating arc through the grand hall, unleashing a kinetic wave that launches the entire squad of elite soldiers into the air. They were utterly helpless. Watching his elite guards get wiped out in seconds, Prince Tails completely loses his cool. He roars down from the marble stairs, ordering Argus to enter the fray and make Jin pay for defying royal authority. The Golden Knight hesitates under heavy pressure, but slowly draws his blade. Stepping forward with a heavy heart, Argus whispers, "No hard feelings." Tails breaks into manic laughter, caring little if Jin survives the brutal assault. He roars for his commanders to seize the intruder on the spot. Armed executioners leap forward simultaneously, aiming to cut the hero down on the carpet. They never even get the chance. Blue lightning sparks as Jin vanishes from sight. In a fraction of a second, a blinding speed dash slices past the squad, leaving the guards completely disoriented. Can anyone even track his movement? Guards scramble in total confusion while Jin's voice echoes through the hall. He calmly admits that letting him roam free is dangerous and wiping out this city would be simple. Footsteps soft as smoke quietly tread behind the throne. Tails freezes as a deathly chill hits his neck. Jin materializes right behind the prince like a phantom, declaring that he protects this age but shows zero mercy to tyrants. Whispering in his ear, he cold-bloodedly asks which one Tails is. And that's where the story is currently at. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the recap, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, because I'll be posting new chapters as soon as they come out. See you in the next one.